Halo, selamat siang Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya, para sahabat Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia. Selamat siang, apa kabar? Salam sehat dan salam sejahtera buat kita semuanya. Saya Lenie, Presiden dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, mengucapkan selamat datang dan selamat bergabung di channel YouTube Live-nya Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia. Sebelum kita mendengarkan sharing dari tamu spesial kita, ya, tadi barusan kita ada melihat satu buah video, yaitu video tentang pintu belajar. Pintu belajar dan Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia didirikan oleh founder kami, Ibu Lilian Halim, dan saat ini pintu belajar telah memberikan beasiswa kepada kurang lebih 500 anak-anak Indonesia dari kalangan prasejahtera, mulai dari tingkat PAUD, sekolah dasar, sekolah menengah, tingkat universitas di S1, S2, maupun S3. Dan saat ini sudah ada puluhan anak-anak asuh pintu belajar yang telah lulus sarjana dan saat ini sudah bekerja di masyarakat dan sudah bisa memperbaiki kesejahteraan keluarga mereka. Terima kasih kepada ibu-ibu Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, founder kami, Ibu Lilian Halim, dan para donatur lainnya atas support kepada pintu belajar selama ini. Ya, kepada Bapak, Ibu, dan teman-teman semuanya, para sahabat Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia yang tergerak hatinya untuk mensupport program charity dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, pintu belajar, nanti bisa menghubungi Sekretariat untuk informasi lebih lanjut. Mudah-mudahan ke depannya pintu belajar bisa membantu lebih banyak lagi anak-anak Indonesia dari kalangan prasejahtera sehingga bisa mencerdaskan anak bangsa, dan mudah-mudahan anak-anak asuh pintu belajar selain bermanfaat dan berkontribusi untuk kesejahteraan keluarga mereka, nantinya juga bisa bermanfaat dan berkontribusi untuk masyarakat Indonesia dan membanggakan bangsa dan negara tercinta kita, Indonesia. Sebelum masuk ke sesi sharing, marilah kita semuanya meluangkan waktu sejenak untuk berdoa sebagai ucapan puji syukur kita kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa dan Sang Tiratana, karena saat ini kita masih dapat berkumpul dalam keadaan sehat, walaupun secara virtual. Kita dapat berkumpul di siang hari yang berbahagia ini untuk nanti kita sama-sama belajar pengetahuan dari narasumber kita. Marilah kita berdoa sesuai dengan agama dan keyakinan kita masing-masing. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Marilah kita lanjutkan dengan membacakan dan merenungkan core value dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, supaya nilai-nilai tersebut dapat kita praktekkan dan amalkan dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Sebagai Kalayanamita Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, kami bertekad untuk menjalankan nilai-nilai berikut. 1. Respek, penuh hormat kepada Sang Tiratana, mereka yang lebih tua, guru, teman sedhamma, dan semua makhluk hidup demi tercapainya hubungan yang sehat dan harmonis. 2. Joyful effort, penuh semangat sukacita di dalam mencapai kesejahteraan dan keseimbangan antara fisik dan mental, keluarga dan ekonomi, interpersonal dan spiritual. 3. Integrity, menjalani hidup sesuai prinsip dan nilai-nilai kebenaran, baik melalui pikiran, ucapan, maupun perbuatan. Service, tidak mementingkan diri sendiri, melayani dengan tulus ikhlas dan sepenuh hati, demi kebahagiaan dan kesejahteraan semua makhluk. 5. Compassion, mengembangkan kebajikan dan welas asih terhadap sesama di dalam menjalani kehidupan yang tidak merugikan siapapun. 6. Learning, terus belajar dan meningkatkan kualitas diri, baik secara pengertian maupun praktek Dhamma. demi kemajuan spiritual hingga tercapainya pembebasan sejati. 7. Self-reflection, melakukan introspeksi diri, mengembangkan kesadaran dan kebijaksanaan, penuh rasa syukur di dalam menjalani kehidupan yang penuh makna. 8. Faith, mengembangkan pandangan benar serta keyakinan yang kokoh untuk terus hidup sesuai dengan Buddha Dhamma. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya, para sahabat Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia. Namo Buddhaya, salam sehat dan salam sejahtera buat kita semuanya. Ya, di pagi hari yang berbahagia ini, kita sangat beruntung sekali karena kedatangan seorang tamu istimewa, Dr. Wong, jauh-jauh dari Johor Bahru, Malaysia ya. Beliau berkenan untuk membagikan pengetahuan Dhammanya kepada kita semua tentang mata pencaharian dan kekayaan yang didapatkan dengan cara yang benar. Ya. Dan saat ini Dr. Wong sudah hadir. Ya, kita sapa terlebih dahulu. Ya, good morning Dr. Wong. Namo Buddhaya.
Good morning, Namo Buddhaya. Mr. Lenie.
How are you?
I'm fine,
Dr. Wong?
thank you. I'm fine.
Okay. Where are you now, Dr.
Johor
Wong?
Bahru,
Oh, Johor Bahru. Yeah.
sitting
Johor
in my
Bahru.
hall in Johor Bahru.
Sinsan, ya.
Yeah, Singsan.
In Mandarin, what is called Sinsan, ya, Johor Bahru.
Role 4. Actually, it's very interesting. The word Buddha is in the name of the state, you know. The state is called Role 4 Choe, which is has the word Buddha in it. Don't ask me how that word came about. Johor in Chinese is Role 4 Choe.
Oh, yeah. Just now, no, Dr. Wong. Thank you for the information. Yeah. And then send my regards to all the brother sister in Johor Bahru also, and also Sister Sharon, Dr. Wong. Yeah. Okay. Oke, di layar satu lagi sudah ada Sis Jenny. Ya, Namo Buddhaya, Sis Jenny.
Halo, selamat pagi.
Salam
Namo
sehat
Buddhaya.
dan salam sejahtera.
Namo Buddhaya juga, Sis Lenie, Dr. Wong. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ya. Oke, ya. Pada pagi hari yang berbahagia ini, Sis Jenny nanti akan memandu sesi tanya jawab dan akan membantu untuk mentranslate dari bahasa Inggris ke bahasa Indonesia supaya Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman para sahabat Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia lebih gampang untuk memahami dalam bahasa Indonesia. Ya, Sis Jenny juga adalah komite dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia. Ya. Pada pagi hari yang cerah dan yang berbahagia ini, kita berkesempatan untuk mendengarkan sharing Dhamma dari Dr. Wong tentang mata pencaharian dan kekayaan yang diperoleh dengan cara yang benar. Ya. Nanti ada sesi tanya jawab. Nanti Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya boleh menuliskannya di kolom live chat-nya YouTube Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia. Nanti Dr. Wong akan langsung bisa menjawab ya. Ya, oke. Mungkin tanpa tunggu waktu yang berlama-lama lagi, kita undang dan kita persilakan Dr. Wong dan Sis Jenny untuk bisa segera memulai sesi Dhamma sharing ini. Ya, terima kasih. Waktu dan tempat kita persilakan.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Wong. We are very happy to have Dr. Wong here today. Just before we start, maybe we will just share a little bit of Dr. Wong's profile to some of our friends here, so that they know Dr. Wong better before the sharing of the Dhamma talk. So Terima kasih. Selamat pagi teman-teman Buddhist Fellowship semua. Hari ini kita sangat senang ya kita mendapatkan kehadiran dari Dr. Wong. Nah, sebelum kita memulai sesi pagi hari ini, saya ingin memberikan sedikit profil tentang Dr. Wong supaya teman-teman lebih mengenal juga untuk background dari Dr. Wong ini. So, Dr. Wong sendiri lahir di Malaysia. Jadi seperti yang tadi sudah diinfokan juga, sekarang Dr. Wong stay di Johor Bahru. Nah, edukasi Dr. Wong sendiri sebenarnya Dr. Wong merupakan lulusan dokter. Jadi memang namanya dokter karena memang Dr. Wong merupakan dokter, like a real doctor, a medical doctor dari Malaya University. Nah, sampai sekarang Dr. Wong masih aktif untuk mengajar di Monash University di Malaysia. Dan Dr. Wong sendiri sangat aktif juga untuk membabarkan Dhamma. Jadi beliau sangat aktif memberikan Dhamma di Malaysia, di Singapura, dan juga di Indonesia. Nah, hari ini Dr. Wong akan memberikan sharing mengenai mata pencaharian yang benar dan kekayaan yang diperoleh dengan cara yang benar. Jadi untuk waktu dan tempat kami persilakan ke Dr. Wong. Saya akan membantu translate untuk sebagian dari talknya. Terima kasih. Dr. Wong, the time and place is yours.
Thank you. Namo Buddhaya Dhamma family. I will speak slowly and in gaps so that Sister Jenny will be able to translate.
Thank you.
Most of what I will be sharing to you is actually taken from the Utara Nikaya, one of the canonical texts. You know that there are four main Nikayas: the Digha, long discourse, the Majjhima, the middle, and the Samyutta, the connected, and the Anguttara, the numerical. And most of the teachings of the Buddha for lay people are in the Anguttara Nikaya. Today's sharing will be taken from various discourses in the Anguttara Nikaya, for which I will give you the reference to look up yourself with regards to what is righteous wealth and righteous livelihood.
Jadi untuk sharing hari ini dari Dr. Wong akan mengambil banyak referensi dari Anguttara Nikaya. Jadi di Anguttara Nikaya ini cukup banyak yang merelevansikan untuk kekayaan yang benar dan mata pencarian yang benar. Jadi nanti akan di-share juga oleh Dr. Wong untuk ayat-ayat dari Anguttara Nikaya yang mengacu kepada apa yang di-sharing nantinya.
Now, it is very interesting that the Buddha, among the many religions available on earth, is one unique system which includes our livelihood as part of the spiritual path. If you remember the Noble Eightfold Path, right livelihood is one of them. Hence, we cannot separate what we do for a living from our spiritual path. In fact, our manner of earning a living, our way of earning a living is part of the spiritual path. And I think that is very important for all of us to realize that there is no dichotomy between spiritual practice and my secular life. The two of them are in fact one. What happens to our secular life will definitely affect our spiritual life and vice versa. So right livelihood, samadjiva, is one of the 8 factors and part of our spiritual life. Thank you.
Jadi sangat menarik ya untuk di Buddhis ini, karena di Buddhis ini mata pencaharian yang benar merupakan bagian dari spiritual practice. Jadi seperti kita ketahui untuk jalan mulia berunsur 8, salah satunya adalah mata pencaharian benar, yaitu right livelihood. Artinya apa? Artinya kita tidak bisa memisahkan antara mata pencaharian kita dengan spiritual practice kita, karena sebenarnya keduanya saling menyambung ya. Jadi apa yang dilakukan untuk mata pencaharian kita itu merelate kepada spiritual practice kita, tidak bisa dipisahkan.
Thank you. Now, it is very important that we understand some words clearly. We all chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. And every one of us know what that means. Samma Sambuddhassa. That means the perfectly awakened one, or the fully awakened one, or the completely awakened one. I'm sure everyone here agrees. What is that word? Samma. Samma Sambuddhassa. How many of us here, although we chant it daily, are aware that the same word Samma is used in the Eightfold Path? We call it, because someone translated it 100 over years ago, as right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, etc. And then we are stuck. We can't change because it is in our consciousness. But the word is Samma. Like right livelihood is Samma Jiva. Right view is Samma Ditti. The same Samma as Samma Sambuddhassa. So when we say right livelihood or right view, it's actually not a correct or complete translation of what the Buddha taught. Right livelihood would be more accurately translated as complete livelihood or a perfect livelihood. All right? Right view, complete view, a perfect view. Instead, once we added the word right instead of fully or complete, we have made it a moralistic issue when the Buddha taught the right as complete or full or perfect, just like Samma Sambuddhassa, the same word. So when we say right livelihood, Lenie, Sister Jenny, Brother Virya, myself, is our livelihood a complete livelihood that encompasses moral, legal, ethical, spiritual aspects all into it? Is it perfect? Well, few of us can dare claim that it is perfect, but at least we tried, because that is what the Buddha wants us to have. A lifestyle, a vocation, a way of living that is complete, that is perfect, that is full. Samma, as in Samma Sambuddhassa. Thank you.
Thank you. So, untuk teman-teman mungkin banyak yang sudah hampir setiap hari juga chanting ya, misalkan Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Tetapi mungkin apakah banyak teman-teman yang sudah mengetahui artinya? Untuk arti sendiri dari Sama Sambuddhassa, artinya adalah perfectly awakened one or fully enlightened. Artinya tercerahkan secara completely tercerahkan ya, tercerahkan sempurna. Nah, kalau kita balik lagi ke Jalan Mulia Berunsur 8, di mana semuanya itu biasa dimulai dengan kata-kata sama. Jadi misalkan untuk mata pencaharian yang benar, contohnya adalah sama jiwa, for example. Nah, di bahasa Indonesia sendiri dan di bahasa Inggris, sama itu sering diartikan sebagai right. Jadi misalkan right view, right livelihood, or semuanya dimulai dengan kata right, which means yang benar. Jadi misalkan right livelihood adalah mata pencaharian yang benar. Tetapi sebenarnya kalau kita mengacu kepada pengertian dari Sama Sambuddhassa sendiri, di mana artinya itu adalah complete, bukan right tapi complete ya. Jadi artinya itu adalah kalau kita translate secara lebih sesuai, sebenarnya sama jiwa, for example, right livelihood itu sebenarnya lebih sesuai ditranslate menjadi complete livelihood, for example. Jadi itu adalah mencangkup semuanya ya. For example, untuk sama jiwa, untuk complete livelihood, artinya ini mencangkup mata pencaharian yang komplit dan sesuai secara moral, secara legal, secara etikal. Jadi semuanya itu mencangkup secara komplit. Full and complete artinya.
Thank you, Sister Jenny. I like you use the word sempurna because sempurna, I think, is a very accurate translation. And for those of us who live in Malaysia and Indonesia, I speak Bahasa Malaysia, you speak Bahasa Indonesia. There are, of course, a lot of differences between Bahasa Malaysia and Bahasa Indonesia. But we are lucky, you know, because a lot of Bahasa Malaysia, Bahasa Indonesian words came from Pali. Just to illustrate, Itipico, Bhagawa, Arahan, Samma, Sambuddho, Vija, Charana, Sampano. Your husband's name is in the Itipiso. Vija, Chara, Sampano, Sampurna. So there are so many words which are borrowed, which either sound the same or have the same root word. So Sampurna, I think you chose very wisely. It's a complete, ideal, perfect way of living, of earning a living. And the Buddha described it as like a butterfly that goes from flower to flower, never harm the flower, but help the flower pollinate, like a bee that goes from flower to flower, never harm the flower, but helps the flower to pollinate, and at the same time make honey. That, the Buddha said, should be our lifestyle. That means we earn a living, helping, but we do not damage or destroy anything. Without bees, we will have no food, we will have no fruits. Bees are essential to the ecosystem. And the Buddha used the analogy of the bees going from flower to flower. So right livelihood would give us righteous wealth. And it would mean a livelihood that does not harm, but will help. Even if you don't help, you must not harm, because that is the ideal. And for us as lay people, our livelihood must be a livelihood that does not break any of the 5 precepts, the Panchasila. And 5 precepts are very simple, basic guidelines, only 5 basic guidelines. And as long as we try our best in our livelihood, not to break the 5 precepts, you are trying your best to live a livelihood, a vocation, a job that is not harming people. And with that, you earn righteous wealth. Sister?
Oke, sure. Alright. Jadi tadi Dr. Wong juga menginfokan sebenarnya untuk bahasa Indonesia dan bahasa Malaysia sendiri cukup banyak ya kata-kata yang berasal dari bahasa Pali juga. Dan sekarang yang mau di-share oleh Dr. Wong adalah sebenarnya contoh livelihood yang baik itu seperti apa. Contohnya itu adalah yang diberikan oleh Buddha adalah seperti lebah, jadi seperti bees. Lebah itu bekerja mempolinasi bunga. Caranya adalah dari satu bunga ke bunga lain, tapi si lebah tersebut tidak merusak bunga tersebut. Jadi dia bekerja dengan cara berpindah dari satu bunga ke bunga lain untuk melakukan polinasi, tetapi pada prosesnya lebah-lebah tersebut tidak merusak bunga. Jadi artinya apa? Artinya untuk livelihood yang benar dan sesuai, itu seharusnya membantu dan tidak merusak. Jadi membantu tetapi tidak merusak. Kalaupun belum sempurna dan belum totally right, minimum jangan harm. Jadi jangan kita, bahasa Indonesianya harm adalah jangan melukai, jangan membuat sesuatu yang dapat melukai lainnya. Dan yang penting itu adalah tidak melanggar 5 sila. Jadi kita mempunyai 5 sila Buddhis di Pancasila tersebut, contohnya yang tidak membunuh, tidak memberikan ucapan-ucapan yang tidak benar, dan selanjutnya. Jadi minimum itu kita tidak membreak dari 5 sila Buddhis tersebut. Ini yang paling penting.
I will now read from Utara 5.41. 5.41 talks about legitimate wealth or righteous wealth. Righteous wealth earned from a righteous livelihood. So what is righteous wealth or legitimate wealth? It is earned by our effort and initiative, built up with our own hands, gathered by the sweat of the brow. So that it literally means it is a work that you do yourself honestly, with your own effort, your own initiative, hard work with your own hands, by the sweat of your brow. Of course, those days, 2,600 years ago, it was primarily an agrarian environment. So people were farmers living off the land, and hence the expression is by the sweat of your brow, the strength of your arms, etc. Today, that would mean very more likely sitting in front of a computer, typing away, but not harming anything, and basically earning that wealth by your own effort, legitimately, and without breaking any precepts or harming any. All right, Sister Jenny, 541, Anguttara Nikaya.
Oke, jadi mengacu kepada Anguttara Nikaya 5.41 mengenai righteous wealth, yaitu kekayaan yang didapatkan dengan cara yang benar. Jadi di sana diinfokan bahwa kekayaan yang diperoleh dengan cara yang benar itu adalah kekayaan yang diperoleh dengan menggunakan upaya sendiri, jadi menggunakan own effort and built using our own hand. Jadi kita melakukannya dengan tangan kita sendiri dan jerih payah dan keringat kita sendiri. Jadi own effort dan menggunakan inisiatif dari kita sendiri. Nah, memang ini mengacu kepada kondisi 200-an tahun yang lalu, di mana pada saat tersebut hampir semua pekerjaannya itu adalah menjadi farmer, ya, menjadi petani. Jadi memang pada saat tersebut petani-petani biasanya memerlukan banyak effort dan jerih payah dan keringat untuk dapat memperoleh hasil yang baik. Kalau kita relate ke pekerjaan kita sekarang, sebenarnya sama saja. Jadi artinya adalah kita melakukan pekerjaan dengan menggunakan own effort dan inisiatif kita sendiri. Jadi menggunakan jerih payah dan usaha kita sendiri. Itu yang dimaksudkan dengan bagaimana cara kita memperoleh kekayaan yang sesuai dan benar.
Thank you, Sister. Now, in the very same sutta, the Buddha teaches us how with this righteous wealth that you have earned, how do you use it? First, the Buddha said, you make yourself happy and pleased. So we are lay people. So when you earn your money righteously, legally, then of course you use that money to fulfill all your needs. Now, of course, you have to strike a balance between fulfilling your needs and going overboard. Wants have no end. Needs, of course, are limited, but wants have no end. But the Buddha did say that for lay people like us, you can make yourself happy and pleased with that money that you have earned. So by all means, Lenie, Sister Jenny, you can buy a nice car, no issue. You can buy yourself a nice bag, but not too many. One is fine, two is a spare, but beyond that, what is the point? It's not going to serve any purpose. Now, then the Buddha said, then you make your mother and your father happy. So with that money, he said, please make your parents happy. And then he goes on to say, you make your children, your wife or husband, your servants, your workers, your staff happy. And then he said, you make your friends and colleagues happy. And very importantly, 2,600 years ago, the Buddha even spoke about insurance. He said, you protect yourself against losses from fire, water, kings, bandits, or unloved heirs. Today is insurance. Buy insurance. Have a good accountant. Keep your money safe. And he said, importantly now, that with this righteous wealth, you make your relatives, your guests, your ancestors, your king, and the deities, you make offerings to them. Now, this is interesting. What do you mean by kings? Well, that means income tax. So please do pay your income tax. Ancestors, well, the Chinese do have the ancestral tablet at home. We do have festivals like Qingming. We do visit our parents either at the columbarium or the grave. Do make your respects and your offerings to them. And the Buddha even included deities. even deities, your local deities, devas, datuks. In Malaysia, datuks are very common. Almost all buildings will have one shrine to the local guardian deva, or temples have shrines to the guardian devas. So please do make offerings. And then finally, the Buddha said, dana for the sangha, for the Brahmins, for those who are trying very hard to advance spiritually. So the Buddha taught us, with your righteous wealth, how to use this money in an effective, wholesome way. Sister Jenny?
Oke, jadi kita melanjutkan lagi untuk kekayaan yang diperoleh dengan cara yang benar, yaitu righteous wealth. Jadi setelah kita memperolehnya dengan jerih payah kita sendiri, bagaimana sih dapat kita gunakan supaya lebih efektif? Nah, di anggota nikah tersebut juga diinfokan bahwa kekayaan tersebut dapat digunakan untuk memenuhi kebutuhan kita. Jadi kebutuhan dengan keinginan itu berbeda ya. Needs and wants. Jadi needs itu adalah kebutuhan, wants itu adalah keinginan. Needs itu ada batasnya. Jadi kita memerlukan hal-hal tertentu. Tetapi kalau kita berbicara mengenai keinginan itu tidak ada batas. Jadi kita sudah punya satu mobil pun kita mungkin ingin punya 2, 3, 4, 5 dan selanjutnya. Jadi yang paling penting adalah bagaimana caranya kita memenuhi dulu kebutuhan kita, wants kita. Lalu setelahnya itu adalah bagaimana membuat orang tua kita bahagia. Setelah orang tua, lalu berlanjut kepada anak, lalu suami atau istri, lalu teman dan rekan kerja. Dan di sana juga diinfokan mengenai apa yang mungkin di modern life itu seperti asuransi. Jadi bagaimana caranya kita memprotek dan melindungi diri kita dari kehilangan karena fire, karena kebakaran, karena flooding misalkan. Nah itu sebenarnya mengacu kalau modern life itu seperti asuransi ya. Jadi memang itu bagaimana caranya kita melihat asuransi itu dapat memprotek kita untuk kehilangan dari hal-hal tersebut. Lalu di sana juga diinfokan mengenai offering kepada ancestors, kings, and deities. Nah, itu adalah persembahan kepada, kalau ancestor itu mungkin untuk teman-teman ada sebagian yang masih banyak melakukan cengbeng ya. Cengbeng misalkan untuk melakukan offering dan persembahan kepada mungkin kakek nenek atau relatif yang sudah tidak ada di dunia ini. Lalu ada juga respecting kepada kings itu sebenarnya kalau kita translate ke modern life itu lebih kepada government. Jadi kita juga membayar pajak kita. Jadi kita melakukan apa yang memang seharusnya kita lakukan. Kita menyetorkan pajak yang seharusnya memang kita setorkan. Dan deities. Deities itu adalah dewa dan dewi. Dewa dan dewi kalau di Malaysia sendiri, Dr. Wong sharing banyak yang memberikan persembahan kepada dewa dan dewi untuk masing-masing tempat ya. Mungkin ini agak sedikit berbeda di Indonesia, tapi intinya kalau misalkan memang ada dewa dan dewi yang memang dipercayai, itu dapat dilakukan persembahan. Dan lastly adalah kepada Sangha dan kepada Brahma. Jadi persembahan kepada biku dan juga kepada temple, for example.
Thank you. Sister Jenny is a very good translator. Must be professionally trained.
No, Dr. Wong, because you speak very clearly, so I can follow. Thank you.
Now, in the very next sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 542, the next one, it's very interesting because in that sutta, there's a gatha which says, the gods or the devas or the devis protect one who is guarded by principle, who uses their wealth for the welfare of the many, one who is learned with precepts and observances intact and steady in principle, doesn't lose their reputation. So even the gods will praise them, and by Brahma too, they are praised. So when you do have resources, and you use these resources in a wholesome manner, you are in fact protecting yourself, your family, because even the devas and the devis will be so pleased by what you are doing that whatever they can, they will do to protect you. So that is something which is important for us who are still living in this mundane world. Whatever little help we can get, of course, will be helpful. Accidents, etc., etc. I'm sure every one of us would have experiences that, oh, I'm so lucky, you know, something happened. Ajahn Brahm used to tell us there's no such thing as luck. Oh, what a coincidence. Ajahn Brahm tells us there's no such thing as coincidence. You think it's luck or coincidence simply because you do not understand. So I think that's important for us to realize. Utara Nikaya 542, if you are a good person, doing good things with your righteous wealth, even the Devas and the Devis will protect you. Thank you.
Oke, kita melanjutkan ke Anggutara Nikaya 5.42. Secara summary, di sana dikatakan bahwa Dewa dan Dewi sendiri memprotek, melindungi orang-orang yang memperoleh kekayaan yang benar dan menggunakan kekayaan tersebut untuk kebaikan banyak orang. Jadi maksudnya seseorang yang memperoleh kekayaan dengan cara yang benar dan menggunakan kekayaan tersebut untuk kebaikan banyak orang, mereka akan terlindungi. Nah, kadang-kadang kita sering bilang juga ya, wah kita lumayan lucky nih. Mungkin misalkan kita terhindari dari kecelakaan atau kita terhindari dari sesuatu yang kurang baik. Yang sering kita katakan adalah, wah kita very lucky ya, lucky banget kemarin ini tidak terjadi gini. Tetapi seperti yang Ajahn Brahm katakan juga, sebenarnya definisi luck and coincidence, jadi definisi luck itu seperti hoki dan suatu pas-pasan tidak terjadi sesuatu yang tidak baik sebenarnya tidak ada di kamus Buddhis sebenarnya. Karena sebenarnya itu merupakan mungkin itu seperti karma juga ya, tetapi yang dikatakan oleh Ajahn Brahm adalah there is no such thing like luck and coincidence.
Thank you. Now we move on to Anguttara Nikaya 5.47. 5.47, Book of 5, the 47th discourse. And here, the Buddha actually teaches us a little bit more beyond what we understand as wealth. Because for most people, when you talk to them about wealth, they can only think of dollar and cents. But the Buddha said wealth is much more than dollar and cents. And here, the Buddha talks about 5 kinds of wealth. And he explains. One is the wealth of Saddha. Saddha in the Buddha Dhamma is very often translated as faith in English. And unfortunately, that is wrong. Faith is blind. When you say, I have faith in something, that means you have no proof. You just believe. That's all. So if someone tells you that, oh, if you believe in ABC, you will go to heaven. Do you have any proof for that? There is no proof. But you believe it. So that is called faith. But that is what the Buddha doesn't want. The Buddha doesn't want us to have blind faith. He wants us to have what is called saddha, which is an experiential confidence or lucid confidence, which means I know this to be true. I know when the Buddha talks about dukkha, I know it is true. When the Buddha talks about anicca, impermanence, I know it is true. Then that is no longer blind faith. That is confidence because you have known it personally to be true. So the first kind of wealth is the wealth of saddha. And that is when we know for ourselves that what the Buddha teaches is correct. And we can see it in our everyday life, whether it's the universal characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta, or whether it is the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. You can see it yourself, that this is correct and this is true. And that is saddha. So the first wealth, the Buddha said, is the wealth of saddha. lack of a proper translation, we are stuck with the word wealth of faith. But please remember, faith is not what the Buddha meant, because faith is blind. Faith is believing in what is not proven. The Buddha said, do not believe in anything which is not proven by your own experience. Saddha is a much better word. And so I will often use the word saddha rather than the word faith. Just like we often use the word dukkha instead of the word suffering, because dukkha means so much more than suffering. Thank you, sister.
Oke, thank you Dr. Wong. Jadi kita mengacu sekarang ke Anguttara Nikaya 5.47. Jadi untuk kita biasanya memang kita mengasosiasikan kekayaan itu dengan dolar dan sen ya. Jadi rupiah gitu misalkan, maksudnya sesuatu yang tangible dan merupakan ya istilahnya kekayaan itu sama dengan uang. Tapi di Buddha Dhamma sendiri kekayaan itu dibagi menjadi 5, ada 5 macam kekayaan. Dan yang pertama itu adalah the wealth of sada. Sada itu kalau ditranslate secara halus adalah kepercayaan. Tetapi kita akan bahas sedikit karena yang dimaksudkan dengan kepercayaan itu bukan merupakan blind faith ya, bukan merupakan kepercayaan yang kosong. Jadi apa yang sering salah ditranslatekan dari sada, ditranslatekan sada itu adalah kepercayaan. Tetapi yang tidak diinginkan itu adalah kepercayaan yang kosong ya, jadi blind faith. Sesuatu yang kita percayai tanpa ada landasan, tanpa adanya pengertian dan tanpa adanya tidak bisa di-proven. Jadi kalau kita bicara misalkan, oh ya kita percaya kepada sesuatu karena jika kita percaya terhadap sesuatu tersebut, nanti kita bisa masuk ke surga misalkan. Nah, kepercayaan yang tidak dilandasi oleh sesuatu yang dapat kita lihat dan dapat kita proven, itu merupakan blind faith dan itu tidak seharusnya kita percayai. Apa yang diinginkan oleh Buddha Dhamma adalah lebih ke experiential confidence, artinya keyakinan yang dapat kita yakini karena kita sudah dapat mengalami dan dapat melakukan proof bahwa memang hal tersebut ada. Contohnya mengenai duka dan anicca. Duka bahwa hidup itu adalah penuh dengan penderitaan, for example. Nah, itu dapat kita proof sendiri. Jadi kita dapat meyakini sendiri karena kita dapat melihatnya dalam kehidupan kita. Atau misalkan anicca. Anicca itu adalah kehidupan yang tidak kekal. Bukan kehidupan yang tidak kekal, maksudnya adalah bahwa hidup itu penuh dengan perubahan ya, tidak ada sesuatu yang sifatnya kekal. Itu juga dapat kita proof sendiri di dalam hidup ini. Jadi wealth of sada itu adalah mengenai kepercayaan yang dapat kita proof. Jadi bukan merupakan blind faith. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the second wealth the Buddha's taught is the wealth of ethics, sila. And of course, for us as lay people, the wealth of ethics, its foundation is the Panchasila, the 5 precepts. And not to kill, we try our very best to avoid killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking alcoholic drinks. So this is the foundation of ethics for lay people. And when we do try our very best to follow these training rules, we have the wealth of ethics. Please remember, dear Dhamma family, that in the Buddha Dhamma, there are no commandments. There are only training rules. The 5 precepts are not commandments. The 5 precepts are sikkhapadam. They are training rules for us to try our very best to follow. They are like traffic lights. If you cross during the red light, there's a high chance you will get into big trouble. So they are like pagar. They warn you, do not cross this fence. So they do not actually restrict us. They protect us. The traffic light does not restrict you. The traffic light protects you. So our 5 precepts are like that. They actually protect us. And that is why when you become enlightened, you have no more precepts. Because when you become enlightened, you know what to do that is correct. You do not have any more precepts. Precepts are for people who are not enlightened, and hence we need them to guide us as to what would be the better thing to do. Once enlightened, you know what is the best thing to do, so you actually do not need precepts. As we often say, if you're driving a car, Sister Lenie, Sister Jenny, please do not drive through a red light. Don't do that, or you will get into serious trouble. But if you drive an ambulance with somebody who is dying in the back of the ambulance, then please cross the traffic light, even when it is red, because you're trying to save a life. So precepts are not cast in stone. They are guidelines for our behavior. And it's very, very often people will ask, oh, dengue season, should we go around spraying that fogging machine to kill off all the mosquitoes? Isn't that panati pata? And I always say, you must always look at what is your intention. What is the cetana? The cetana, the intention, is to save people from dengue, because people are dying from dengue. And that is why we go around fogging. So you will cross the traffic light, even if it is red, if you're driving an ambulance with someone who is dying at the back, because your aim is to save the person. So please remember, they are not commandments, they are training rules, and when you are unawakened, you need them just like we need the traffic lights. Thank you.
Jadi kita move on ke kekayaan yang kedua, yaitu wealth of ethics ya. Jadi kekayaan berdasarkan sila. Jadi ini adalah yang kedua ini adalah memberi informasi bahwa jika kita kekayaan yang kita peroleh jika kita melakukan 5 sila, Pancasila ya. Jadi Pancasila itu menghindari pembunuhan, menghindari pencurian, menghindari sexual misconduct, menghindari berbohong, dan menghindari mengkonsumsi minuman keras. Nah, tetapi yang perlu kita ketahui untuk 5 sila ini berbeda dengan firman yang mutlak harus tidak boleh dilakukan. Ini sebenarnya sifatnya lebih seperti kerambu-rambu ya, jadi seperti traffic light dan seperti pagar. Tujuan utamanya adalah supaya melindungi kita. Jadi bukan untuk menghalangi dan merestrik kita untuk melakukan sesuatu, tetapi sebenarnya sifatnya itu adalah untuk lebih dapat melindungi kita. Nah, untuk seseorang yang telah tercerahkan, yang sudah fully enlightened, 5 sila ini tidak lagi diperlukan karena mereka mengetahui apa yang harus mereka lakukan. Tetapi untuk kita lay people, memang Pancasila ini diperlukan karena ini sifatnya adalah sebagai rambu-rambu. Tetapi ini rambu-rambu bukan artinya mutlak. Ini juga tergantung dari situasi contoh yang diberikan oleh Dr. Wong misalkan. Tentunya kalau kita sedang mengendarai mobil, tentunya kita jangan melanggar lampu merah ya. Jadi kalau misalkan ada lampu merah, jangan dilabrak saja karena kita tahu itu berbahaya dan ya bisa menjadi kecelakaan, for example. Tetapi di kondisi yang berbeda dengan intention dan cetana yang berbeda, contohnya jika seseorang ada di dalam ambulans dan sedang kritikal ya, akan dibawa ke emergency. Nah, pada saat tersebut mungkin melanggar lampu merah itu dapat dilakukan karena memang intentionnya itu adalah untuk menyelamatkan jiwa orang jika seseorang sedang dalam critical illness. Contohnya juga adalah misalkan sekarang sedang musim demam berdarah. Nah, pada musim demam berdarah ini pertanyaan yang common juga adalah bagaimana kalau misalkan dilakukan fogging? Kan memang kalau misalnya sedang musim demam berdarah sering dilakukan ya fogging ya supaya nyamuk tidak berkembang dan untuk menghindari demam berdarah tersebut. Nah, kalau misalkan memang intention dan cetananya itu baik, artinya adalah untuk melindungi orang supaya tidak terkena demam berdarah, karena demam berdarah itu dapat menyebabkan kehilangan jiwa juga ya, dapat meninggal juga. Maka sebenarnya hal tersebut tidak apa-apa, karena memang intentionnya itu adalah untuk menghindari orang-orang sakit dan mungkin hilang juga nyawanya karena demam berdarah yang cukup berbahaya.
Thank you. Then the third one is the wealth of learning. We are all learning. Every day we are learning, and we are learning here the Dhamma. So the wealth of learning is the ability for us here to learn, remember, and most importantly, use the Dhamma. And when you can do that, then you are very wealthy, because you have within you a huge resource. Now, learning the Dhamma doesn't mean reciting long lists of Abhidhamma, committing to memory long lists of sutras. More importantly, it is learning it, remembering the principles, and then utilizing it in our daily life. There's a Chan story, a Chan master called Yun Wen, and he was asked, what is the highest principle of the Buddha Dhamma? And he replied, an appropriate statement, which confused people. What does it mean? Remember the question, what is the highest teaching or principle in the Buddha Dhamma? And this great master replied, an appropriate statement. Now, it is actually very profound, because when you realize what he's trying to say, learning the Dhamma, which contains about 20,000 discourses, applying it in our daily lives is the most important aspect. And Yun Wen's statement, an appropriate statement, makes tremendous sense, because when you are in a situation, how are you going to respond appropriately? If the Dhamma that we had learned, we are able to utilize it appropriately in any circumstance, in any situation, then you are truly a very wealthy man. You are truly very, very rich. Sister Jenny and Sister Lenie, I know Chinese. The Chinese word for Dhamma, farm. You will remember Sister Lenie, Sister Jenny, has 3 drops of water on the left, and on the right, the word Chu Qi, the Chu, to go out. It's very, very profound. The ancients didn't just simply write for no reason. They chose great care. 3 drops of water on the left, and on the right, Chu Qi, the Chu, to go out. You flow, when you know the Dhamma well, like water around rocks, in the path of least resistance. Like the great Chan master Yun Wen said, an appropriate statement. That means the ability to respond when Sister Jenny's workers give problem, when Sister Lenie sales either too high or cannot meet target or cannot deliver goods. How are you going to respond appropriately in the most wholesome way, guided by the teachings of the Dhamma? If you can do that, you are indeed very, very rich. Thank you.
Thank you. Yang ketiga adalah, untuk kekayaan yang ketiga adalah kekayaan untuk belajar ya, wealth of learning. Nah, belajar sendiri ada 3, yaitu kita belajar, kita mengingat, dan yang paling penting itu adalah bagaimana cara kita mengaplikasikan Dhamma di dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Jadi yang paling penting itu adalah yang terakhir, yaitu bagaimana caranya kita mengaplikasikan Dhamma tersebut di kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Nah, pada suatu saat ada cerita di mana seorang Chan Master, dia ditanya, apakah yang menurut Anda merupakan prinsip tertinggi yang terpenting? Dijawab, appropriate statement, which is artinya adalah statement itu adalah seperti pengungkapan yang sesuai. Nah, itu walaupun jawabannya singkat, tapi sebenarnya artinya sangat dalam. Karena artinya adalah bagaimana cara mengaplikasikan dan cara kita merespons pada suatu keadaan sesuai dengan keadaan tersebut. Ini sebenarnya merupakan skill yang tidak mudah ya, sangat susah karena itu artinya adalah kita sudah menguasai dan dapat mengaplikasikan sesuai dengan situasi dan kondisi. Nah, kalau yang mengerti Chinese akan mengerti bahwa Dhamma di dalam bahasa Mandarin itu ada 3 air, maksudnya ada komponen air dan ada komponen keluar. Jadi itu istilahnya seperti air yang dapat menembus celah-celah batu. Jadi bagaimana caranya ajaran tersebut dapat melewati batu. Bagaimana cara kita mengaplikasikannya di dalam situasi dan kondisi yang berbeda. Jadi itu yang dimaksud dengan the wealth of learning, kekayaan dari pembelajaran.
Thank you. And the next one is the wealth of generosity. And this is dana. This is chaga. It is when with the righteous wealth that you have earned, you use it well, as discussed earlier. Freely generous, open-handed, committed to charity, loving, to give, and to share. You know, it is said that wealth must be like butter. Butter kept in the fridge doesn't serve any purpose. Butter has to be spread on the bread or the biscuit for people to eat. You put it in the fridge, it serves no purpose. So wealth is described as being like butter. Use it well to help people. And if you are doing that, that is the wealth of generosity, dana, and that is something which I think any one of us can do. Because when we talk about wealth and sharing it to others, freely generous, almost immediately most people would think of, again, money. But it is not just money. You can share your talent, your skill, your resource, very, very importantly, your time. I can tell you, dear Dhamma family, if you ask people for money, and if the guy or woman has money, they will say, oh yeah, I give you, just don't disturb me. Okay, I don't mind. Okay, I make a dana, I write you a check. You ask the same person, can you volunteer maybe once a week, once a month or something like that? Oh, I have no time. I'm sure Sister Lenie faced that problem all the time. People don't even mind giving you money, but they are not willing to give you time. So when we say dana, chaga, generosity, it is not just money. Of course, financial generosity is one of them, but it is also your skill. People who have the patience to teach children, for example, I admire how they commit 30 years of their life teaching Dhamma classes every week. It is not an easy task teaching little children who are doing anything but sitting there paying attention. But yet they commit 20, 30 years of their life. To them, I pay respect. Then there are people who are very talented in IT. Whoever the brother or sister now managing this link between the Zoom and the YouTube, I again topic you, because now many of our sharing is on the internet. Just like you, we either share via Zoom or link to the YouTube, and I have no idea how to do it. Sometimes we have about 10, 20 centers linked up together, all watching their own individual YouTubes. And yet the people in IT are able to do it. The biggest we had was about 16 centers linked together. And so they are all watching individually on their own YouTubes because, you know, Zoom has a limit. And yet the people managing it did it seamlessly. At one time, we even did it to Indonesia. Sister Jenny will remember 2 years ago, we even did it to Indonesia. So the IT people, whoever you are, brother, sister, now handling this, I congratulate your dana of your skill, because now your IT skill in the modern temple, which is the computer, which is at home, is very, very important. So dana, please remember, is not just of money. It is of time. It is of resources. It is of your skill, your talent, and that is equally important. And if you are doing that, then you have the fourth wealth, which is the wealth of generosity. Thank you.
Oke. Jadi yang keempat adalah wealth of generosity. Generosity itu artinya adalah kemurahan hati. Jadi caga ya, kemurahan hati. Nah, righteous wealth yang sudah diperoleh, yang langsung terpikirkan untuk kemurahan hati adalah untuk dana ya. Misalkan dana itu contohnya salah satunya adalah untuk dana kekayaan. Tetapi sebenarnya bukan hanya kekayaan saja, berarti bukan hanya dalam bentuk uang, tetapi banyak juga cara kita untuk berdana dan memperoleh kemurahan hati dan memspread kemurahan hati kita melalui cara-cara lain, yaitu contohnya adalah talenta dan juga waktu. Jadi banyak yang mungkin dapat berdana uang, belum tentu mereka dapat berdana waktu ya, karena waktu itu seperti kita ketahui merupakan resources yang sangat penting di dalam hidup. Nah, contohnya adalah seseorang yang menjadi guru Dhamma class untuk Sunday class untuk anak-anak misalkan. Mereka sangat berjasa ya, mereka sangat berjasa meluangkan waktunya volunteer untuk mengajarkan anak-anak. Itu juga merupakan contoh dari dana dan kemurahan hati. Contohnya yang untuk talenta, misalkan jika mempunyai talenta dalam IT, dalam komputer, maka dapat membantu melakukan setup untuk webinar misalkan seperti ini. Jadi sebenarnya banyak cara kita dapat memberikan kemurahan hati kita. Jadi bukan hanya melalui uang, tetapi juga berdana waktu, berdana talenta. Nah, kekayaan itu dapat diibaratkan seperti mentega ya. Jadi kalau mentega itu dimasukkan ke dalam kulkas dan tidak diapa-apakan, seperti kita ketahui ya mentega itu ya seperti blok mentega. Tetapi kalau kita keluarkan dari kulkas dan kita spread ke atas roti, dia menjadi sesuatu yang berharga. Jadi memang jika kita berbagi dan mempunyai kemurahan hati, maka kekayaan yang kita peroleh itu akan lebih jauh berarti. Itu yang kita maksudkan dengan wealth of generosity, yaitu kekayaan kemurahan hati.
Thank you. And finally, the fifth one, the wealth of wisdom. Now, this is, of course, very precious, and wisdom is acquired slowly as we develop insight into the Buddha Dhamma, insight into the teachings of the Buddha. And here in the discourse, it is specifically stated of the wisdom of arising and passing away, anicca, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to the complete ending of suffering. You know that the Buddha teaches us the three universal characteristics: anicca, impermanence, or instability, because things come together from many, many factors and elements. They are always conditioned phenomena. And being a conditioned phenomena, they are always impermanent, unstable, and they will change because it is of the nature to change. Just for example, if you think of a house is not a unit, but many, many things which are put together to make a house. We call it a house, but there are thousands and thousands of things that are put together to make a house. And any one of us here who have lived in a house will know that it is of the nature to change. This will break down, that will fall down, this will collapse, that will get blocked. And that is because of its nature of anicca, impermanence, unstable. Then you have dukkha, anicca dukkha. Dukkha, of course, is a very difficult to translate word. Stress, dissatisfaction, unreliability, emo, and of course physical suffering. All this fall under the umbrella of dukkha. And because things are unstable, impermanent, and always changing, they inevitably will give rise to dukkha. Now, think of that very expensive BMW that you bought. If it is permanent, that very expensive car will give you happiness till the end of your life. You will forever be happy. But does that happen? You know, maybe you're happy for 6 months, and then by 1 year you begin to realize maintenance cost is very high. By 2 years, this breakdown, that breakdown. By the 3rd year, as Brother Jusing tell me, time to sell the car because it is only designed to last that long. You need to change a lot of parts. So its nature of impermanence of being a compound phenomena makes it unstable, unreliable, gives rise to dukkha, dissatisfaction, unhappiness. And why is it like that? It is because the car or the house is anatta. It is not self. We think of the car or the house or ourself as a self, which is complete, inherent, concrete, unchanging, permanent. But that is not so. Your house is certainly anything but permanent. Your car is certainly anything but permanent. It is always changing. It is always unstable. And that is anatta. No, or not, or non-self. We would like to think that there is a self which is permanent, but there isn't. You and I are equally like a house, like a car. You try not to eat for 3 days and see what happens to you. You probably die. You try not to drink, I think in 2 days you'll be dead. Like a car, we need to keep on putting petrol, except for us, 3 times a day, our petrol is food, 10 times a day is water. So I hope you realize that. And incidentally, Sister Lenie, Sister Jenny, the word in Chinese for Buddha, for, I'm sure both of you are familiar with the word. It's a very, very interesting word because there's no other Chinese word that has that same sound. In Chinese, you know that you have 4 tones. In Cantonese, you've got 7 tones. You speak a different tone, it's a different meaning, completely different. 4, 4, 4, 4. But 4 is the only Chinese character that has only one single meaning, no tone. And Lenie, you will know what is on the left and what is on the right. On the left is ren, human, man. On the right, a word which is very seldom used nowadays, wu, which means no, none, not. Wu is synonym is wu. No human, no being, no self. Isn't that interesting? When you study the Dhamma and you correlate it within the various cultures, I'm sure there are equally wonderful words in Pali which will give you such insight. But I truly admire the ancients who chose these words with such great care. For literally is telling you, Sister Lenie, wu wo, wu ren, anatta. So the Buddha calls this, and you understand this, the wealth of wisdom. This, of course, is something that will take us a long time to slowly digest, analyze, and develop insight so that it is not fade, so that you actually know yourself, so that it is sada. And when you have that, then you have the wealth of wisdom. So now you have got all the 5 types of wealth: the wealth of faith, the wealth of ethics, the wealth of learning, the wealth of generosity, and the wealth of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. Nah, yang kelima ini adalah wealth of wisdom, artinya kekayaan kebijaksanaan, wisdom. Jadi di sini adalah kebijaksanaan dan pengetahuan kita mengenai 3 hal ya, mengenai anicca, dukkha, dan anatta. Memang hal ini akan diperoleh seiring pembelajaran kita karena memang cukup dalam. Nah, yang pertama adalah anicca, kebijaksanaan dan pengertian kita mengenai anicca. Jadi semua yang ada di dunia ini sifatnya adalah impermanen, artinya tidak ada yang kekal. Contohnya adalah rumah ya, contohnya. Rumah seperti kita ketahui itu terdiri dari berbagai komponen ya, banyak sekali nih. Misalkan ada bagian dindingnya, ada bagian lantainya, dan lainnya. Nah, kalau yang mempunyai ataupun yang tinggal di rumah pasti tahu ya bahwa bagian-bagian dari rumah tersebut sering bergantian rusak. Ini adalah karena sifatnya yang tidak kekal. Jadi contohnya hari ini AC-nya yang rusak, nanti besok bagian lainnya yang rusak. Jadi ini adalah merefleksikan anicca, bahwa semua hal itu sifatnya tidak kekal atau impermanen. Yang kedua adalah dukkha. Dukkha bisa ditranslate ke beberapa macam. Jadi contohnya adalah stres, penderitaan, ketidakpuasan contohnya. Nah, hal yang tidak stabil tersebut, yaitu anicca, ketidakkekalan tersebut, menyebabkan dukkha. Ini contohnya saja adalah Dr. Wong mengilustrasikan contohnya seperti mobil ya. Misalkan kita mempunyai mobil BMW yang baru. Mungkin awal-awal kita sangat senang ya, wah mobil baru nih dari BMW. Tapi karena sifatnya yang anicca, yaitu tidak kekal, maka mungkin dalam 1-2 tahun kemudian sudah mulai menyebabkan dukkha. Karena ada bagian yang rusak, lalu harus diservis, servisnya biayanya mahal. Nah, jadi sifat ketidakstabilan dan ketidakkekalan dari suatu hal, yaitu anicca, menyebabkan timbulnya dukkha, yaitu timbulnya ketidakpuasan, penderitaan, dan lainnya. Nah, sebenarnya kenapa? Ya karena semua hal itu sebenarnya adalah anatta. Anatta itu artinya non-self, tidak ada entity ya. Jadi misalkan BMW. BMW itu bukan merupakan entitas, bukan non-self. Ini contohnya adalah non-self. Jadi kalau misalkan kita merelate bahwa BMW itu adalah sesuatu yang sifatnya kekal dan mempunyai entitas, ini sebenarnya tidak benar karena BMW itu satu, anicca tidak kekal, dua dapat menyebabkan dukkha, dan yang ketiga itu adalah karena itu merupakan anatta, yaitu tidak mempunyai entitas. Ini kalau kita lihat dari karakter Mandarin dari Buddha yaitu Pho. Kalau kita telusuri dari karakternya tersebut, Pho tersebut sangat menarik karena Pho itu tidak ada tun. Jadi kalau misalkan di Mandarin itu ada yang namanya pinyin ya, ada namanya pinyin di mana berbeda suara artinya itu berbeda. Jadi misalkan kalau kita mengatakan wow, satu lagi mengatakan wow, itu artinya sudah dua hal yang berbeda. Tetapi kalau untuk Pho ini tidak ada tonalitas, jadi hanya satu, dan ini sangat menarik sekali. Dan artinya itu adalah, kalau kita lihat Pho itu ada sebelah kirinya adalah Ren, artinya adalah manusia, dan sebelah kanannya adalah U, artinya adalah. Jadi sebenarnya kalau ditranslate secara literal, berdasarkan karakter sendiri saja, Buddha itu artinya adalah no being, no man, artinya adalah no self, artinya adalah anatta. Nah, jadi pengetahuan kita dan kebijaksanaan kita mengenai tiga hal ini adalah yang kita maksudkan dengan the wealth of wisdom, kekayaan kebijaksanaan. Jadi ini kita telah mengcover 5 ya. Yang pertama adalah wealth of sada, mengenai kepercayaan, tapi bukan kepercayaan blind faith. Lalu wealth of ethics, ini adalah kekayaan atas etika dan sila. Lalu yang ketiga adalah wealth of learning, kekayaan untuk pembelajaran. Lalu yang keempat adalah wealth of generosity, kekayaan atas kemurahan hati. Dan yang kelima itu adalah wealth of wisdom, kebijaksanaan.
Thank you. That's nice sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Ya, jadi demikian sharing dari Dr. Wong. Nanti kita juga akan buka untuk sesi tanya jawab, tapi untuk floor akan kita balikan dulu ke Sis Lenie ya. Thank you, Dr. Wong, for the insightful Dhamma sharing before we start the question and answer session soon.
Oke, ya. Thank you, Sister Jenny. Thank you, Dr. Wong, for the insightful Dhamma sharing for us today in this morning. Thank you so much, Dr. Wong. Ya, sebelum kita lanjut ke sesi tanya jawab, nah kita akan menyaksikan terlebih dahulu satu video dari pintu belajar. Ya, pintu belajar merupakan program edukasi dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia dan saat ini sudah memberikan beasiswa kepada anak-anak Indonesia dari keluarga prasejahtera. Ya, ini ada sebuah video dari salah seorang anak asuh pintu belajar yang berada di Singkawang, Kalimantan Barat. Ya, dan kami ucapkan terima kasih juga kepada Ibu-Ibu Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, founder kami Ibu Lilian Halim, dan semua donatur yang telah mensupport program dari pintu belajar. Ya, kita saksikan terlebih dahulu video dari pintu belajar. Terima kasih.
Nama saya Apan, saya berumur 10 tahun, kelas 4 SD Asoka. Dan di samping saya ada adik saya yang berumur 5 tahun. Saya biasa pergi sekolah sendiri jalan kaki. Mata pelajaran saya paling suka IPA. Wes pulang sekolah saya biasa main, kalau sudah sore Mama suruh bantu jual jinton, saya bantu dia jual jinton. Setiap hari Minggu saya ke Viara, ke Baktian. Pekerjaan mama saya menoreh karet. Biasa dia pergi jam 5, pulangnya jam 11 siang. Kalau mama kerja biasa saya menjaga dedek, ajak dia main gitu. Bapak biasa kerja bangunan. Kalau sekarang dia nggak kerja karena sakit pinggul. Dia sakit sudah 1 tahun. Cita-cita saya menjadi pemain bola. Harapan saya buat sembuhkan Bapak.
Ya, terima kasih Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya dan yang telah menyaksikan video dari pintu belajar. Dan bagi Bapak Ibu dan teman-teman semuanya, yang tergerak hatinya untuk mensupport program edukasi pintu belajar dari Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia, nanti bisa menghubungi Sekretariat untuk informasi lebih lanjut. Terima kasih. Dan tibalah saatnya di sesi tanya jawab, kita persilakan Sis Jenny untuk bisa memandu sesi question and answer dengan Dr. Wong. Terima kasih.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Wong. I think we come now to the question and answer sessions. We have several questions already here, and then we will also open to the floor in case there is any live questions as well. So maybe we can start, yeah, Dr. Wong. So the first question is in regards to the ethics of work here, the nature of the work here. Say, for example, you know that something is actually not, it's actually something that is not really right. Say, for example, in Indonesia, it's quite common to actually give things in order to make things smoother in work, for example. That is not considered to be right, but then it has become a kind of a necessity in a certain aspect, although it's an unspoken rule, so to say. So what is the way to get around it and to minimize the impact? Because you actually know that that is not right, but it's something that you kind of have to do to make things work. So is there any way to actually lessen the impact? Mungkin saya translate dulu untuk bahasa Indonesianya dulu ya. Nah, jadi mungkin ini adalah nature dari pekerjaan di Indonesia, di mana terkadang perlu melakukan hal-hal tertentu yang sebenarnya secara etik diketahui itu bukan merupakan sesuatu yang baik untuk dilakukan, tetapi perlu dilakukan karena jika tidak dilakukan maka itu akan membuat cukup sulit, misalkan dalam melakukan aplikasi untuk lisensi dan lainnya. Itu memang tidak dikatakan secara gamblang, tetapi adalah sesuatu yang sebenarnya cukup common dilakukan dan banyak dilakukan di bisnis-bisnis. Sedangkan kita mengetahui hal tersebut sebenarnya tidak baik dilakukan. Nah, bagaimana caranya untuk mereduce impact tidak baik dari melakukan hal tersebut? Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Thank you, Sister Jenny. What Sister Jenny raised is not a problem unique to Indonesia. It is seen in many countries. But we also have countries whereby this is very negligible. Japan is, of course, one of them. It is almost an insult in Japan if you try to offer anything. In Singapore is probably another example that comes to mind. And on top of that, you probably have countries like New Zealand and the Scandinavian countries, whereby this offering would be considered at a very low level or completely unacceptable. So it is not a problem that is unique to Indonesia. We have the same problem in Malaysia. And that's why we had a change of government just a few days ago, because people were getting fed up. People were getting literally up to here. And they say enough is enough. We have to do something and change. Now, the question or the problem that you raised, Sister Jenny, is not new. 10 years ago at the global conference organized in Jakarta, that was when I first met Sister Lenie and you, this same question was raised at the global conference. So it is obvious that after 10 years, nothing has changed.
It's in the system, yeah.
Because 10 years ago at the global conference, this was actually raised at the global conference. And everybody, of course, like Sister Jenny said, agrees that it is not right and that we should not be doing it. The counter argument by some other people is that, oh, some people are very, very poor. The government servants, for example, may have a lot of difficulty making ends meet. And so, in a sense, this is helping them. Well, those are all, of course, ways of going around what is basically an unhealthy act. So, of course, we need to change. But it is not easy because to change it requires changing an entire system. But can it be done? Let's look at Hong Kong. I do not know how many of you know, but those of you who are in your 50s now will remember that in the 80s, in the 70s, Hong Kong was horribly, horribly corrupt. Judges could be bought, policemen were very corrupt. Policemen literally go on beat collecting money, like protection money. And you often see that in the movies reflecting Hong Kong of the 1970s. You have judges who very sadly, I think one or two committed suicide or something like that. I can't remember offhand now. But it was sad because there was a period where Hong Kong was really in a bad shape. The civil service, the police, even so-called judges were corrupt in the 70s and 80s. And I'm sure all of you would have watched movies which make fun of that. You look at Stephen Chow's movies, he's always making fun of corrupt magistrates and corrupt judges. But Hong Kong managed to change it. From the 1990s onwards, they managed to revamp the entire system until what is today. And today, Hong Kong is one of those countries which has very, very low level of corruption. So is it possible? Yeah, it is possible. But first, we must have the political will to change the thing. And second, of course, you must have good governance so that people do not need to resort to corruption. It's a give and take issue, of course. There are people who need it and there are people who are willing to give it. And so, strictly speaking, of course, if you look at it from the ethical viewpoint, it is not right. And we need to change. Malaysia, Singapore has done it, Hong Kong has done it. So I hope that one day Indonesia will be able to do it as well. And that seems to be the trend worldwide, isn't it? That we should try our best to move towards good governance instead of having a static state whereby bad things remain unchanged. And as I said, I always share with my wife, Hong Kong is a very, very good example because a lot of the movies that we see, you see Andy Lau movies and all that, and then they show you how bad the secret societies were. And then, people in real estate can literally bribe everybody and anybody under the sun. When you look at the Hong Kong movies that depict that era. But all that is gone in literally one generation. One generation, just one lifetime. One generation, 50, 60 years. In one generation, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, now 2020, Hong Kong has almost completely eradicated all of these. And I think that gives us a lot of hope, a shining example that with good governance, we can achieve that. And that would be, of course, the ideal. And I don't know whether Malaysia can do it. We have a prime minister now who promises he will do it, or at least try to do it. And I'm sure if Malaysia can do it, I hope Indonesia can. But yes, the Buddha taught us about hiri and ottappa, functions and fear of consequence. Our left and right hand, the Buddha said, hiri and ottappa. In English would be conscience and fear of consequences. And every time when you do something like that, and your conscience already tells you that something is wrong, something is not right. And circumstances as it is now, as I told you, there are no commandments in the Buddha Dhamma. Circumstances as it stands now might put you in a very difficult position. And we fully acknowledge that. Nobody denies that. And no one in Buddhism takes a high moral stand and say, no, you're wrong, you shouldn't do it. No, that is not what we do within the Buddha Dhamma. None of us should take a high moral stand and look and say, no, you should not be doing that. Because we are not in your shoe, neither are you in my shoe. Only you know. And as I always say, there's no right, there's no wrong. There's only consequences. This is the whole teaching of the Buddha, karma, where this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. The very first teaching of the Buddha in the Dhammacakka discourse, the very first teaching. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. So there's only consequences. So you've got your hiri, you've got your ottappa, you know that it is wrong, but circumstances are forcing you to do it. And when you do it, you know there may be consequences. So I think that with that, hopefully things will turn for the better. Look at Hong Kong, as I always keep telling my wife, if Hong Kong can do it, we can do it. Hong Kong is a shining example in the world whereby they managed to turn it around in one generation. My wife watches a lot of Hong Kong movies, they show you all these horrible things during that time. Hong Kong series, they always make fun of that time whereby it is so horrible. But yet, one generation, remember, all it took was one generation and they changed it. So I look at them as a shining example. Hong Kong has one of the most reputable judiciaries in the world today. Completely independent, very, very reputable. So fantastic for them. Really fantastic for them. Thank you.
Alright, thank you Dr. Wong. Jadi pembabaran dari Dr. Wong ya memang sebenarnya gifting dan ya istilahnya corruption contohnya itu bukan hanya terjadi di Indonesia tapi juga di banyak tempat ya di Malaysia juga lalu di Hong Kong dulu juga. Tapi memang Dr. Wong memberikan contoh ya, contoh yang sangat bagus di mana hal tersebut dalam satu generasi dalam 50 tahunan sudah dapat terhilangkan, dapat tereradikasi. Contohnya itu adalah Hong Kong. Jadi Hong Kong di tahun 70-an cukup messy, cukup berantakan juga. Jadi banyak gangster, banyak korupsi juga. Tetapi kalau kita melihat Hong Kong yang sekarang sudah jauh-jauh lebih bersih. Nah, mengacu ke pertanyaan tadi, yang dimana secara moralitas diketahui bahwa itu tidak baik, tetapi karena kondisi dan situasi menyebabkan harus mau tidak mau dilakukan, maka memang sebenarnya itu mengacu ke hiri otapa ya. Jadi bahwa semuanya itu apa yang kita lakukan menyebabkan terjadinya this arise and that arise. Jadi maksudnya kita melakukan hal ini akan menyebabkan konsekuensinya seperti ini. Jadi kalau di mana sebenarnya sudah kita ketahui itu tidak baik dilakukan, tetapi harus tetap dilakukan, maka yang harus dipikirkan adalah konsekuensinya. Karena apa yang kita lakukan akan memberikan konsekuensi ya. Jadi itu yang harus di keep in mind. Dan juga hiri otapa juga harus menjadi prinsip dalam hidup kita. Mungkin saya lebih persingkat intisarinya supaya nanti teman-teman dapat memberikan lebih banyak pertanyaan lagi kepada Dr. Wong. Thank you. Oke. Lalu di sini kita ada pertanyaan juga dari floor Dr. Wong. Yeah, sorry Dr. Wong, I forgot to translate in English. So we have a question from the floor. The question from the floor is, if we obtain righteous wealth and we use right way to actually donate as well, but only in a small amount, but often, would we still receive goodness from what we have done? Jadi jika kita memperoleh kekayaan yang benar dan menggunakan dengan cara yang benar, misalnya dengan berdana, walaupun dalam jumlah yang kecil tapi sering, apakah tetap akan memberikan berkah kebajikan kepada kita?
Very good question. Thank you, sister. Thank you to the person who asked. Please remember, dear brother or sister who is asking, it is not the quantum, it is not the amount that is important. It is your intention which is important. What is your intention? Now, that's a very good Chan teaching found in the conversation between the Emperor Liang Wuti and Bodhidharma. You know, Bodhidharma was the venerable who went from India to China. And Bodhidharma was really a very revolutionary teacher because he tried to turn what Buddhism in China, which at that time already become fossilized into rites and rituals, he tried to turn it back into the Buddha's original intention, which is basically to train the mind. And of course, it wasn't easy for Bodhidharma, but he was such a famous man that when he arrived in China, even the Emperor Liang Wuti, the emperor then was called the Emperor Liang, Wuti is just emperor, who was a very devout Buddhist. The emperor asked for an audience with Bodhidharma. And so the two of them actually arranged to meet. And the emperor asked Bodhidharma three very famous questions. You only look at the first question. Now, the Emperor Liang Wuti did a lot of things. many of you may not realize why Chinese Mahayana Buddhism is vegetarian. Many of you do not realize Chinese Mahayana Buddhism, which spread to Vietnam, for example, they are vegetarian. Hence, the Vietnamese Mahayana Buddhism is also vegetarian. But not many people are aware that Chinese Mahayana Buddhism is vegetarian because of Liang Wuti. This emperor, who is a very devout Buddhist, who built many temples, donated a lot of land for monasteries, donated a lot of money to the monasteries, supported the monasteries. He demanded by an imperial edict that all of the Sangha that is supported by him, started by him, funded by him, must be vegetarian. So that is actually more a legalistic requirement than anything else. So people often get that confused, and they think that it's part of the teachings. It's not. It's actually a legalistic requirement started by Liang Wuti. So Liang Wuti thought he has done tremendous amount of good deeds. You know, I'm the emperor, I got a lot of money, land, everything. I donated a lot of money. I freed people. Those who join the Sangha don't have to serve in the army. They don't have to pay tax. They were given land, etc. So when he met Bodhidharma, the first question he asked Venerable Bodhidharma is, I've done all these things. How much merit do I have? Bodhidharma replied, none whatsoever. Kosong. Kosong. And of course, the emperor couldn't understand. Then he asked a few more questions, 2 more questions after he got angry and dismissed. And it was only much later that and the emperor was talking to his own venerables that they explained to him that the Venerable Bodhidharma is correct. Because when you do a wholesome deed, whatever it is, dana of time, dana of money, dana of skill, dana of your IT skill, you do it because it is the good thing to do. Because it is the correct, the wholesome thing to do. Not because you think, oh, I spent 1 hour here helping out with the IT. By that, I should have a very nice girlfriend. I should have a very good car. I should get a very good job. That is not dana. That is a business investment. And you know business investment always has risk. You might end up with nothing. Dana is without conditions. You do it because it is the correct, the wholesome thing to do. The sama, the ideal, the perfect, the complete thing to do. So when the Emperor Liang Wuti asked Bodhidharma the question, how much merit do I have? Bodhidharma already know immediately that this emperor doesn't understand. He is thinking like a businessman. I donate land, I donate this, I donate that, I should get back this in return. And that's why Bodhidharma told him none whatsoever. And even his own venerables later very bravely dared to say it. Initially, of course, none of them will say it. Every time they ask, they will say, oh, Kong Te Wu Liang Lo. That means, wow, immeasurable merit. Who dare to say to the emperor, you got no merits? But Bodhidharma, of course, different. He doesn't care 2 hoots. He's not even Chinese. So he said none whatsoever. Dana Parami, remember? Dana Parami is unconditional, without expectation of a return. You do it because it is the right thing. So dear Dhamma sister or brother who asked the question, don't worry about the quantum. To a very rich person, what is 1 juta rupiah? Nothing. That day when I was visiting Indonesia, my shoe gave me trouble and I had to go downstairs to the mall downstairs and buy a pair of slippers. My wife said always, don't give to your son-in-law, buy a good one. Why you save for your son-in-law for? So she took me to Hush Puppy and we bought a pair of slippers at Hush Puppy. It cost 3 juta rupiah. I got a shock of my life. When we went to the counter to pay money, I don't even know how to pay. 3 juta rupiah. My wife had to give the money to the girl and say, can you take yourself up? You don't know how to give. So to a rich person, what is 1 juta rupiah? It's nothing. To a poor person, it's a lot of money. So it's not the amount, dear Dhamma brother and sister, whoever you are asking the question, it's your intention. If your intention is wholesome, that is very good. You know, there's a sutta in which the Buddha talked to this person and he recalled in the past life when he was a king called Velama. And this king did a lot of dana, like Liang Wuti, dana this, dana that, dana this, dana that. So in that sutta, the Buddha gave a list. You know, among all this dana, of this dana, of that dana, of land dana, of money, they're all very low in that list. What is high in that list is when you take, for example, a genuine refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. That is very high. What is very high in that list is when you genuinely keep the 5 precepts. Sangat tinggi. What is very, very high in that list? When you do metta meditation. The Buddha said even a finger snap, that duration, genuinely feeling, may Sister Lenie be happy and well. Genuine, not just cakap-cakap aja, tapi betul-betul. Genuinely wishing someone who is not healthy, may you be well, may you be happy. That is more meritorious than you giving money, giving land, giving this, giving that. And what is the highest level, the Buddha said? The highest. When you realize anicca, dukkha, anatta. When you just have knowing what is truly impermanence, etc. What is truly dukkha, what is truly anatta. That is the highest level of merits. So if you notice, at the very high level of merit, it is all mental. It is not material. Taking refuge, keeping precept, metta meditation, realizing anicca, dukkha, anatta, these are all mental. These are all in the mind. So dear Dhamma brother, sister, don't worry about the quantum. That is not important. If you are rich, okay, you can give more. If you are not rich, give whatever is within your means to support. If you got no money, it's okay, give your time. All right, you know, the most important person I always say in the center, whenever we have an activity, is the lady in the pantry washing the plates. Doesn't require money. It's a job that nobody wants, but still somebody has to do it. Somebody has to stand in the pantry there and wash the plates. So that is the highest dana as far as I can see within that system of organizing an activity. Doing a job that nobody wants to do, but yet critical. Critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Jadi menjawab pertanyaan dari si skema, yaitu apakah kalau berdana tapi hanya sedikit, apakah pertanyaannya itu mengacu kalau apakah tetap akan memberikan berkah kebajikan kepada kita jika berdana dalam jumlah yang kecil. Nah, jawaban dari Dr. Wong itu yang penting bukan jumlah, tetapi intention. Intention yaitu apa yang melandasi melakukan dana tersebut. Jadi untuk menjawab singkat, tenang saja karena bukan amount, bukan jumlah yang matters. Nah, ini ada cerita dari Dr. Wong juga. Jadi dulu ada raja bernama Liang Uti dengan Bodhidhamma. Nah, pada saat tersebut bertahun-tahun, beratus tahun yang lalu, pada saat tersebut di China memang sudah ada Buddha Dhamma, sudah ada Buddhist, tetapi pada saat tersebut masih lebih kebanyakan mengacu kepada ritual ya. Jadi pada saat itu Bodhidhamma ingin mengubah balik kepada ajaran Buddha yang sesungguhnya, yaitu melatih pikirannya. Nah, pada saat tersebut ditanya, Liang Wuti banyak sekali melakukan kebajikan karena memang beliau merupakan seorang Buddhis yang sangat berjasa ya di China. Jadi banyak mendirikan tempel, banyak berdana tanah untuk mendirikan bangunan dan lainnya. Nah, beliau menanyakan kepada Bodhidhamma, jadi menanyakan dengan kebaikan-kebaikan yang sudah saya lakukan, begitu banyak kebaikan, berdana, berapa banyak jasa kebaikan atau merit yang saya peroleh sih? Dia bertanya hal tersebut kepada Bodhidhamma. Which is dijawab, tidak ada. Mengapa tidak ada? Karena sebenarnya pikiran itu sangat penting ya. Jadi jangan mengibaratkan berdana itu sebagai suatu investasi bisnis. Yang harus dipikirkan adalah bahwa kita berdana karena kita mengetahui berdana tersebut adalah sesuatu yang baik ya. Jadi intentionnya itu sangat penting. Intentionnya bukan untuk supaya kita memperoleh sesuatu balik, jadi bukan merupakan investasi, tetapi itu adalah genuinely benar-benar karena kita merasakan bahwa dengan berdana itu adalah merupakan sesuatu hal yang baik yang kita lakukan. Nah, dana parami atau dana parami itu sebenarnya seharusnya tidak bersyarat. Jadi bukan sesuatu yang dipikirkan harus kita peroleh balikannya ya. Jadi seperti investasi tersebut. Jadi harusnya dana parami itu sifatnya adalah unconditional dan tidak bersyarat. Nah, kalau kita lihat dari list apa sih yang dianggap sebagai yang mempunyai merit yang tinggi, sebenarnya yang paling tinggi di dalam list itu bukan merupakan dana material. Dana material, dana uang sebenarnya justru jauh di bawah ya. Yang lebih tinggi itu adalah yang sifatnya membina mental dan bukan material. Yang paling tinggi adalah pengetahuan dan benar-benar mengetahui tentang anicca, dukkha, dan anatta. Itu yang paling tinggi. Lalu yang juga tinggi di dalam list, di dalam urutan adalah bagaimana kita benar-benar mempercayai Buddha Dhamma, lalu bagaimana cara kita menjaga sila, 5 sila, dan juga pada saat kita melakukan metta meditation, jadi meditasi cinta kasih. Jika pada pada saat kita melakukan meditasi cinta kasih, walaupun hanya singkat, tetapi jika kita benar-benar sungguh-sungguh memikirkan yang terbaik, misalkan kita mendoakan supaya teman kita yang sakit sembuh dan lainnya, maka itu mempunyai dana parami yang sangat tinggi sekali. Jadi untuk menjawab pertanyaannya, tidak, dana material itu mungkin kalau untuk seseorang yang sangat kaya mungkin itu mudah dilakukan, tetapi untuk yang tidak terlalu berada mungkin dana walaupun jumlahnya lebih kecil itu juga jauh lebih berarti. Jadi dana itu bisa macam-macam dan dana material itu merupakan hanya salah satu dan itu bukan merupakan yang paling tinggi di dalam list. Demikian, thank you. Thank you for the explanation, Dr. Wong. Now we also have a question from Rizal from the floor. Is asking is the wealth that we are having now, is that past life karma, or is it because of our own hard work at this current life? Jadi apakah kekayaan kita itu hasil dari karma masa lampau atau karena kita bekerja keras di masa sekarang? Thank you.
Well, the short answer is it is both past life karma and the hard work in this life. Please do not look at karma as something exoteric. The word karma merely means action. And the Buddha said it is cetana, it is intention. Karma, vipaka, whatever action will give rise to a reaction, a consequence. Karma, vipaka. When this is, that is. When this is not, that is not. Remember, that's the fundamental teaching in the first discourse, the Dhammacakkappavattana. When this is, that is. When this is not, that is not. So please do not look at karma as something esoteric, something exotic. It is not. It is something which is very simple. If I drop this, it will break. That's karma. So if I intentionally drop this, it will break. That's karma. So yes, the karma of the past, well, because of that, you're born in Indonesia, you're born in this community, you're born in Jakarta, etc., etc. So you may start with that. But what you do with that is constantly changing. The vipaka. So, for example, I always say, all of us here are born in Southeast Asia, we assume. Why are we born in Southeast Asia? Because our grandparents or great-grandparents came to this part of the world and we settled here. So we are born here. And most of us didn't come from very wealthy families or even well-to-do families when they first came. But they work hard. Our grandparents, our parents, they all work very, very hard. So they changed the situation. Okay, so you are born to that family now. You have already a reasonable good start. But you can squander it all, you know. And I'm sure every one of you would have heard horror stories of how people squander it all. All right? now you can also use whatever resources and build upon it. So what you have today depends on what you did last week, 1 year ago, 10 years ago. If you didn't go and study hard, but went to university or college and partied from first semester to last semester, you're not going to get good results. Don't blame your past karma. It's your present karma. You are the one who created this present karma by partying from one semester to another semester. All right, you are the one who's creating it. But if you have studied hard, you have done well, you've got yourself trained professionally, then you are ready to face the challenges, and then you develop it from there, and you earn righteous wealth. So your righteous wealth now, in short, as I said, is a combination of, yes, what happened in the past. If not, you could have been born in Afghanistan or Ukraine or something like that. Then that would be a really big mess. But you're born here, so you're already starting with that ingredient. Now, with that ingredient, you're trying to make a cake. You can make a hopeless cake with the best ingredient, or you can make a very, very good cake with very simple ingredients. It is how much effort that you put into it. All right? So don't blame your past karma. Blame yourself, because that is what you did 1 week ago, 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Okay, thank you.
Thank you Dr. Wong. Jadi menjawab pertanyaannya, apakah merupakan karma masa lampau atau merupakan hasil dari kehidupan kali ini? Jawabannya adalah dua-duanya. Kenapa dua-duanya? Memang dari karma masa lampau juga ada pengaruh. Jadi misalkan contoh, Anda dilahirkan di Indonesia dengan keluarga yang baik, itu juga sudah merupakan karma dari masa lampau ya, hasil buah karma dari masa lampau. Tetapi yang sangat penting adalah apa yang dilakukan sekarang juga. Jadi hasil dari apa yang Anda dapatkan sekarang ini merupakan hasil dari apa yang Anda lakukan 1 minggu lalu, 1 bulan lalu, 10 tahun yang lalu. Jadi seseorang misalkan yang memang mahasiswa yang maunya party terus, bermain terus, ya hasilnya adalah hasilnya tidak bagus, pelajaran tidak bagus. Itu merupakan hasil dari apa yang kita lakukan. Karena karma itu adalah karma dan vipaka ya. Jadi apa yang dilakukan menghasilkan sesuatu. Jadi contoh yang singkat saja, kalau kita menjatuhkan sesuatu, ya airnya akan tumpah. Jadi jawaban singkatnya itu hasilnya adalah dua-duanya. Diilustrasikan dengan sangat baik oleh Dr. Wong. Contohnya adalah kue ya. Kalau saat Anda membuat kue, Anda bisa membuat kue yang sangat enak dari bahan-bahan yang simple. Jadi itu yang mungkin diilustrasikan dari bahan yang simple itu dari karma masa lampau, tapi Anda bisa membuat kue yang enak jika Anda memberikan effort yang baik sekarang. Tapi bisa juga the other way around. Bisa saja Anda mempunyai bahan-bahan yang sangat bagus, bahan untuk membuat kue yang sangat bagus. Jadi itu istilahnya sudah mempunyai pasar karma yang bagus. Anda dilahirkan di keluarga yang bagus. Tetapi bisa saja dari bahan yang sudah sangat bagus tersebut menghasilkan kue yang sangat tidak enak. Jadi misalkan sudah dilahirkan di keluarga yang sangat baik, dengan kekayaan yang baik, tetapi Anda menghambur-hamburkannya saja contohnya. Jadi jawaban singkatnya, dua-duanya memang mengambil andil. Tapi yang paling penting adalah effort yang kita lakukan sekarang ini. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I will open the question to Sis Lenie as well. Maybe there are several questions.
Thank you, Sis Jenny. Thank you, Dr. Wong. Dr. Wong, saya bicara dalam bahasa Indonesia ya. Maybe Sis Jenny help me to translate to English ya. Dr. Wong, di ajaran Buddha Dhamma ini biasanya kita sering mendengar contentment atau bisa merasa puas atas apa yang sudah kita miliki saat ini. Nah, akan tetapi kita sebagai seorang umat biasa atau berumah tangga tentu saja memiliki keinginan-keinginan yang tidak terbatas ya. Nah, jadi kalau anak-anak muda milenial dan anak-anak muda zaman sekarangnya mungkin mereka masih mempunyai cita-cita, mempunyai ambisi untuk selalu lebih baik dari masa ke masa dalam bidang apapun, finance, kesejahteraan, dan lain-lain. Nah, jika kita terlalu cepat puas atas apa yang kita ada saat ini, apakah itu akan sulit untuk mencapai kemajuan? Mungkin mohon pencerahannya, Dr. Wong. Terima kasih.
Yeah, I understand, Jenny. It's okay.
All right, sure.
Thank you. This is a very good question. I think that's a very important thing we must clarify, especially with young people. Nobody owes you a living. One of the most popular suttas is the Mangala Sutta. The Mangala Sutta is like a roadmap for our life. And you will see in the Mangala Sutta that a very important condition, they call it blessings, but it's actually more conditions. A very important condition is that you must have a job that can earn a living. You must have a skill that can help you earn a living. That means you must be trained to be able to earn a living so that you can support parents, you can support your family, and you can support children. These are all in the Mangala Sutta. So remember, it says that you must have a skill, or today's language, a job or vocation that is able to help you earn a living, righteous wealth, righteous livelihood, so that you can support your parents, your family, your wife. Notice, wife, Jenny, is singular, not plural. Okay, that's very important. Now, that's my mother-in-law. Let me lift the phone and put it down. Hello? Hello? My mother is all right. So it is very important for the young people to realize that you must have a trained profession. Nobody owes you a living. So you cannot just say, I'm very content, I don't want to study, I don't want to do anything, I just want to lie there like a doormat. No, the Buddha never taught that. You are a lay person, you must have a vocation, a job, a way of living that can help you earn a living so that you can support your parents, your family, your wife. It doesn't say wives, it says wife, singular, which is very interesting. Now, that's the first thing. So do not get the misconception that you're not going to do anything, because that is wrong. Now, as to regard of, I'm a businessman, how far do I want to go? That is up to you. You can ask any businessman. A lot of good Dhamma brothers and sisters, friends here who are business people. They're all very stressed. I don't envy business people, Actually, they're always, I look at them, they're always very stressed on, For example, lately, the Malaysian ringgit dropped. And so I have this friend who is a businessman, and he's every day doing this. He say, my goods from Thailand to Singapore, now the freight has gone up 3 times. Your contract has been signed, He said, how? The freight has gone up 3 times, he said. And yet, you have to deliver the goods, etc., etc. And then price of petrol go up, again, So I can see he's very stressed. He makes a lot of money, but I can see every day he's so stressed because he's so worried about so many things. And me, of course, go around every day telling him, you cukup makan time to call it a day Why you want to do all these things? Then he said, my hair is wet. The Chinese expression, I already washed my hair, it's wet, I'm stuck in it. He said, if I know this, I would have stopped. So it's basically up to you. I mean, if you want to say, I have not enough money, probably even Bill Gates does not have enough money, you want to go by that standard. All right. So it's basically up to Sister Jenny how much she wants to involve herself in, and when she said, I have enough, I don't want to stress myself. I mean, when I retired 2 years ago, people asked me and say, are you crazy? You can still work for another 10 more years and earn money. Why do you choose to retire? And of course, my wife and I are saying, why am I working for my son-in-law? Enough already, no need to work for my son-in-law. Let my son-in-law earn his own money, etc. So where you want to draw the line is up to you. Some business people, even 80 years old, also cannot stop. That's one. So nobody asks you not to earn a living. Nobody asks you not to be trained. Don't use Buddhism as the excuse. Because Buddhism asks you to have a good profession, be well trained, so that you can support your family. That's one important thing. Second thing, which is very important, buying things, like what Sister Lenie said. Young people, they want to buy things. Now, for you to understand why you want to keep on buying things, like certain politicians, they buy one Birkin after another Birkin, another Birkin, another Birkin, and end up with 100 Birkins or something like that. Why do they do it? You have to understand the Buddhist teachings. What does the second noble truth tell you? It tells us about an emotion called tanha. Now, tanha is an emotion. Again, once you use the Pali word, tanha, it sounds so exotic. So, something in the air, something in the sky. But when you actually understand it, it's just an emotion. It's an emotion, craving, a broad category of emotions. So let's say I will use Sister Jenny to be safer. Don't want to offend anybody. Let's say Sister Jenny now got iPhone 14. iPhone 14 is doing whatever Sister Jenny needs. Everything that she needs in the phone. That iPhone 14 cukup already. Good camera, can communicate, can WhatsApp, can text, can store message, can have secret files, all that. Cukup. So when iPhone 15 or iPhone 16 comes out, and her iPhone 14 is not rosak or something, why does she want to buy iPhone 15 or iPhone 16? Now the Buddha actually explained it very, very well. When it comes out, when her children become teenagers, they will want to buy iPhone 15, 16. Maybe now they're too young, but when they're teenagers, they will want it. They will cry, they will beg the papa, and finally Virya will buy them. And then they'll be happy for 1 week. But everything that the iPhone 14 now do, all right, in that iPhone 15 is the same. Whatever new features an iPhone 15 may have, Jenny is not going to use. So actually the iPhone 14 is already doing a fantastic job. But all of us will want it, especially when you see the advertisement, when you see a nice, handsome young man or a pretty girl holding it. Why do advertisers do that? Because they are stimulating something called desire. They are stimulating tanha. They are creating the condition for the second noble truth. When you buy it, it is not that iPhone 15 which is making you happy, It is very, very important for us to realize it is the satisfaction of craving that makes you happy. At that moment, when you buy the new Birkin or the new iPhone 15 or the new car, it is the satisfaction of tanha or emotion which makes you happy. But that satisfaction of tanha or emotion is very temporary, which is why you buy a new car, you're very happy for 1 month, by the second month it's just a car. You're not too bothered about it anymore. All right, so the Buddha explained it very well. So we must understand as students of the Buddha Dhamma, how to overcome this is to understand it, understanding the second noble truth, that it is craving that I am satisfying. And that craving can never completely be satisfied because a new one will develop. After iPhone 15, something else would come. After the BMW 5 Series, BMW 7 Series or whatever. There's no end to craving because it's an emotion. The Buddha Dhamma is about letting go of tanha. That's why the second noble truth is to be let go of. You must let go of this craving. When you see the new car, the craving will arise because that is conditioned into us. It is anatta. It will arise because the cause is there. Your training, is to recognize the cause and let it go. Let me tell you this way, Sister Jenny, when Virya sees a pretty girl walking past, he will look. If he tells you he doesn't look, he is bluffing, because it is in his genes. He is given a cause, and the result of that cause, that effect, is he will look. So the Buddha Dhamma teaches him, do not be ashamed of that, because when this is, that is. When this comes, that is the result. Recognize it. First noble truth. It will arise because the condition for its arising is there. Recognize it. What you need to do on recognizing it in the second noble truth is to let it go. You do not crush it and say, I mustn't think like that. I mustn't look. We close his eye, man. Not possible, isn't it? He will look. But the thing is, he has trained himself to let it go. And as long as he lets it go, nothing happens. The trouble is people don't let it go. So, two important things here, Lenie. First is, the first part, nobody tells you to just sit back and do nothing. Please have all the ambition in the world to be the best doctor, the best engineer, the best accountant, the best businesswoman, the best businessman. But always realize it must be worth the suffering. You want to be a doctor? There's a lot of suffering. Only you can answer whether it is worth the suffering. I got a lot of students who tell me now it's not worth the suffering, so they quit. When you become a businesswoman, expanding, maybe you want to expand Ting Ting Tang Tang into Johor Bahru, you'll be under a lot of stress. Now, only you can answer that question. Is it worth the suffering? If it is worth the suffering, proceed. If it is not worth the suffering, forget it. Only you can answer that. Every pursuit will have dukkha. Whether that dukkha is worth it or not is only up to you to answer. That's the first thing. The second thing you have to understand is, why is it we keep on buying things? Not because we need it, but because the desire, the tanha, the craving, that emotion arises when you see it. If you need it, by all means buy it. But if you don't need it, then it's a want. It's not a need anymore. And the Buddha tells us, you must understand. When you understand, you have wisdom. When you have wisdom, you are able to let go. When you have no wisdom, every skirt that comes along, you will chase. Tie a skirt around the coconut tree, also the fellow will go around. We always say that, ma. But when you have wisdom, you will not do it. Because you know the dukkha is not worth the sukha. See, by the way, Jenny, dukkha, sukha are all in Malay words. Huh? Dukkha cita, sukha cita. We have adapted all these words. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Jadi menjawab pertanyaan dari Sis Lenie tadi, bahwa sebenarnya apakah satu adalah mengenai contentment ya, mengenai kepuasan di Buddha Dhamma, apakah itu oke karena itu bisa sebenarnya membuat seseorang menjadi tidak terlalu ambisius misalkan. Dan yang kedua itu adalah mengenai anak muda sekarang yang terkadang lebih ambisius dan banyak menginginkan banyak hal ya. Nah, jawaban dari Dr. Wong yang pertama, terkait dengan yang pertama, di Buddha Dhamma sendiri sebenarnya di Manggala Sutta, even Buddha sebenarnya sangat encourage untuk semua orang mempunyai skill, kemampuan, dan pekerjaan yang dapat menghidupi diri sendiri. Jadi, pada intinya sebenarnya kita harus dapat mempunyai pekerjaan yang dapat menghidupi diri sendiri. Itu satu hal. Nah, akan sampai ke arah mana itu merupakan pilihan. Jadi misalkan Anda adalah seorang businessman atau businesswoman misalkan. Nah, sampai seberapa Anda ingin melakukan ekspansi misalkan itu sudah merupakan pilihan. Karena dengan adanya pilihan tersebut, apapun yang dipilih, pasti akan ada konsekuensinya. Dan pasti akan ada duka di sepanjang perjalanan. Tinggal dilihat apakah memang duka atau penderitaan atau ketidakpuasan tersebut worth dan memang worth it untuk kita kejar ya. Jadi contohnya jika seseorang ingin menjadi dari dokter umum ingin menjadi spesialis misalkan atau menjadi dokter, akan sudah diketahui akan banyak pengorbanan di sana karena jam kerja yang panjang, jam belajar yang panjang. Nah, yang dapat menilai apakah sesuatu tersebut worth untuk dikejar adalah diri kita sendiri. Jika diri kita sendiri merasa, oh ya, itu memang yang kita inginkan dan memang worth untuk kita rasakan pengorbanannya, ya please go ahead gitu. Jadi itu merupakan choices. Itu adalah jawaban yang pertama. Yang kedua, mengenai beli barang misalkan dan keinginan, itu terutama mungkin ini sangat applicable untuk anak muda, sebenarnya bukan anak muda saja sih, sebenarnya even yang sudah mempunyai banyak kekayaan pun, nafsu keinginannya belum tentu lebih kecil daripada yang tidak ada. Jadi sebenarnya menjawab pertanyaan tersebut mengenai jika ingin terus membeli barang, itu sebenarnya lebih ke pemenuhan nafsu keinginan ya, pemenuhan tanha. Nah, pemenuhan tanha ini yang penting kita ketahui, tanha itu tidak ada batasnya dan sifatnya temporer. Jadi pada saat misalkan saya sudah punya iPhone 14, sayangnya saya punya juga bukan iPhone 14, masih lebih rendah sih. Nah, dari iPhone 14 tersebut mungkin nanti muncul nih iPhone 15 dan next series-nya. Sebenarnya iPhone yang sekarang dipakai sudah memenuhi apa yang saya perlukan. Jadi saya hanya perlu untuk cek email, untuk cek website, dan lainnya. Sebenarnya dengan handphone saya yang sekarang sudah cukup. Tapi karena ada nafsu keinginan, wah ada yang baru, saya menginginkan iPhone 15, maka saya membelinya. Nah, mungkin pada saat saya membelinya, itu saya akan merasa puas. Tapi puasnya itu datang dari pemenuhan nafsu keinginan. Jadi itu bukan merupakan suatu need, bukan merupakan suatu kebutuhan, tetapi merupakan pemenuhan dari nafsu keinginan. Itu yang sebenarnya harus kita let go ya, karena tanha itu sifatnya tidak ada batas dan sifatnya temporer. Jadi kita mungkin hanya akan merasakan puas, tapi hanya untuk short time saja. Dan untuk tanha sendiri ini yang penting adalah juga bagaimana cara kita untuk let go. Nafsu keinginan akan selalu muncul. Jadi misalkan jika seseorang melihat seseorang yang cantik dan mungkin wah cakep ya seseorang, itu akan muncul karena memang sifat dan nature-nya seperti itu. Pada saat kita melihat sesuatu, ya akan muncul emosi dan perasaan. Tetapi yang paling penting itu adalah bagaimana cara kita let go atau melepaskan nafsu keinginan. Jika kita dapat melepaskan nafsu keinginan tersebut, maka tidak akan timbul masalah. Ya, kira-kira demikian penjelasan singkatnya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Sis Jenny, translate yang sangat bagus sekali. Terima kasih juga sharing dari Dr. Wong, sangat inspiring sekali. Dr. Wong, my last question. Yeah, I have one last question. I speak in bahasa ya. Dr. Wong, nah setiap dari kita kan akan mengalami masa tua. Nah, dan hampir setiap orang ya, boleh dikatakan semua orang menginginkan masa tua yang bahagia, sejahtera, yang mungkin kalau yang mungkin yang sudah married, mungkin menginginkan diperhatikan oleh anak cucu, banyak anak cucu yang take care ya. Nah, kalau pandangan masyarakat saat ini, nah kalau seseorang yang single, yang mungkin belum menikah, akan mengalami masa tua yang kurang bahagia karena tidak diperhatikan oleh, tidak mendapat perhatian dari anak cucu, seperti itu, Dr. Wong. Nah, bagaimana pandangan di Buddhis yang sebenarnya, mungkin mohon pencerahannya, dan bagaimana tips-tipsnya nih Dr. Wong bagi seorang single maupun yang sudah menikah bisa mengalami masa tua yang bahagia, sejahtera, dan cukup mendapat perhatian dari bisa di-take care oleh mungkin teman-teman, saudara, atau anak cucu seperti itu, Dr. Wong. Dan kadang kita melihat juga seseorang yang sudah menikah dan sudah punya suami dan anak juga, kadang-kadang orang tua tersebut juga berada di panti jompo. Nah, berarti itu kan kita melihat tidak adanya garansi ya. Seseorang yang menikah pun akan di take care sama anak cucu dan suami ya, seperti itu. Nah, mungkin Dr. Wong bisa memberikan pandangan yang benar terkait hal tersebut dan memberikan tips supaya kita semua itu bisa mengalami masa tua yang bahagia. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Jenny. I understand.
Okay.
Half the answer is personal, as you said, and of course influenced by the Dhamma. The first thing, point number one, the world has changed in the last 100 years of the Industrial Revolution. The world has changed very, very greatly. You have to understand that. It's anicca, it's conditioned. But in the last 100 years, the world has truly changed because of the Industrial Revolution, then the IT revolution, and of course now we are in the era of instant information. This is the era of the information revolution. So the world has changed. The first thing you have to realize, accept, embrace, and live with it is the fact that the family structure which we are used to in the old days is gone, historical. In the old days, for many Asian families, it is traditional for 3 generations to live together under the same roof. That is almost unheard of nowadays because children, grandchildren, most of them study all over the world, and then they are scattered in a great diaspora all over the world. Seriously, nowadays, it's the child who is not very capable who is staying home with you. The child is capable, he or she will be somewhere. Is it good? Is it bad? No, it's neither good nor bad. It is 是这样的了. It is as it is in the 21st century, what we call the postmodern era. So it's up to us to adapt to it. Next thing, I used to take care of my parents. That means financially support them, take care of them. They live with me until they die. And then I take care of my generation, which means me and my wife. And I take care of my children. One person earn, support 3 generations. Again, that is gone. It's historical now. Now, when Sister Jenny's children grow up, I would expect that Sister Jenny will be financially independent. She will not need her children to support her, because if she needs her children to support her, that would be a very sad day when you have to do this. That's a very sad day. So again, that has changed. Now, children live practically independent lives. Whatever little they give you is just a gesture. Even if they do not give you, but do not ask from you, you are lucky. My Singaporean friends always tell me, my children don't ask from me. I already so blessed already, let alone they pay me money to support me. But that's reality. Is it good? Is it bad? No. It's 是这样的了. The world has changed. Now, I can speak safely with regards to my own family without offending anyone. Both my children are not with me. They are both migrated overseas. One in Australia, one in Singapore. At least Singapore is not too far. But that is not just me. Most of my family members, their children are overseas. Most of my friends, my professional colleagues, their children are all overseas. So I used to tease Brother SK, an engineer in our little Dhamma group. I said, you better go build some retirement village fast, because all of our children are overseas. All of us are already in our 60s. We're going to be very lonely people. So the days when you expect your cucu or your anak to come back and take care of you, I think those days are historical. Really. Now, your Kayana Mitras become even more important because, again, you are living in Jakarta, which is the capital city, so you probably have relatives in Jakarta. I know Jenny has relatives in Jakarta. I live in Johor Bahru. Whatever relatives I have are in Kuala Lumpur or now all over the world. So even when I go back to Kuala Lumpur, I have only very few relatives left because many have migrated or many have scattered elsewhere. So in JB, who is closer to me? Actually, it's friends, Kayana meters. They're actually closer than family. They are the ones who support. When we get COVID, they are the ones who deliver food. When they get COVID, we are the ones who deliver food. We go watch movies together. We watch whatever, laugh at Stephen Chow's movies together. Stephen Chow is a very good man who de-stress us. When you look at his comedies, yeah, they are ridiculous, but they de-stress you. They can make horrible things like prostitution, corruption, funny, so it de-stress you. But Stephen Chow's shows also reflect a lot of society. He shows you the changes in society, how society has changed. So, well, Sister Lenie, I can only tell you one thing. Marriage is the biggest gamble in a woman's life. The biggest gamble. You can buy a bad stock, okay lah, lose money, that's it. You can invest in a bad business, okay lah, lose money, you get out. You can buy a bad property, okay lah, lose money, get out lah. But you have a bad marriage, you're stuck. So marriage is the biggest gamble in a woman's life. Because the Buddha said that for a marriage to be successful, you must have these conditions. You must have the same sada. You must have the same sila. You must have the same chaga, generosity. You must have the same panya, wisdom. Then yes, he said, your marriage will be successful, not only in this life, but even in the future. You probably come back together because you have created the conditions. Now you tell me very honestly, how many of your friends have the same sada, sila, chaga, panya? Yes, there are some, and they are very blessed. You can see their marriage is very successful. They'll probably be together in their next life. But you also see a lot that are different. So, one, expecting your children to take care of you in old age, I think it's a reality that is going to be less and less and less and less and less. Expecting cucu to take care of you, I think is a dream. Those days are gone away. All right? Expecting your spouse to be with you, if you have married one that shares sada, sila, chaga, panya, then yeah, very likely. But even he will one day pass away, or you will pass away first. So we always tell people, be prepared. Be prepared for that eventuality. And ultimately, it is Kalyana Mitas, which will be really the ones who will stand with you, stand by you. All right? Now, it is not good, it is not bad. It is just as it is. And the ones who survive are the ones who adapt. So we have to adapt. Jenny will have to adapt. Because when Jenny's children reach 17, 18, 19, sure as the sun will rise, he'll be studying somewhere. And when they're studying somewhere, they will adapt a new cultural environment. So you cannot expect them to be the same as you. To expect Tiffany to be in the same mold as Jenny is unrealistic, because Tiffany is in a different era and she will be educated in another environment. So she will be different from Jenny. All right. So we will have to realize that all these things are impermanent. We do our best to adapt. Now, the Buddha tells us that when this is, that is. So when you send your child overseas, please do not expect them not to change, because you have created the condition for change. All right. Thank you.
Alright, thank you Dr. Wong. Oke, jadi kita ada pertanyaan terakhir dari Sis Lenie. Saya nggak translate lagi karena pertanyaannya tadi sudah ada bahasa Indonesia juga. Jadi untuk menjawab, ya sebenarnya generasi sudah berubah ya, waktu sudah berubah juga. Kalau dulu mungkin masih kakek nenek dengan ayah ibu dengan cucunya bisa tinggal barengan di dalam satu atap. Sekarang secara realitas sudah berubah banyak. Jadi banyak sekali juga yang sudah, maksudnya anak-anaknya sekolah di luar negeri, lalu beradaptasi dan migrasi ke luar negeri, contohnya. Jadi memang tidak bisa dan tidak realistik untuk kita dapat menaruh harapan bahwa nantinya pada saat kita tua, kita akan dijaga oleh anak dan cucu kita karena keadaan sudah berubah ya. Jadi maksudnya itu merupakan suatu realita yang tidak seharusnya kita punya harapan. Karena kalau pada saat kita memberikan harapan terlalu banyak, nanti mungkin kita akan kecewa juga karena pada realitinya hal tersebut makin lama makin akan jarang ya. Nah, tadi Dokter Wong juga bilang kalau zaman dulu itu mungkin masih ada ekspektasi, oh iya nanti pada saat kita sudah tua, anak kita yang akan membiayai kita, nanti anak kita yang akan menjaga kita. Nah, sedangkan pada zaman sekarang saja, ya kita sebenarnya ekspektasinya itu kita sendiri dapat independen dan dapat mandiri. Jadi sebenarnya walaupun anak kita memberikan pun itu merupakan suatu gesture baik dari mereka dan bukan merupakan sesuatu yang kita harapkan. Itu yang seharusnya sebenarnya terjadi sekarang ini. Untuk menjawab pertanyaannya juga, sebenarnya yang lebih penting itu adalah untuk right partner ya. Jadi kalau misalkan memang seseorang single, maka yang lebih penting itu adalah pada saat ingin mencari pasangan hidup, sangat penting sekali untuk mencari yang mempunyai kesamaan, sama sada, sama keyakinan, sama sila, sama dalam moralitas dan etika, lalu sama caga, sama dalam kemurahan hati, dan sama panya, kesamaan dalam kebijaksanaan. Mengapa? Karena pada saat kita mempunyai pasangan hidup yang mempunyai kesamaan dalam 4 hal tersebut, maka pasangan hidup tersebut akan lebih mudah bersama, maksudnya akan dapat lebih harmonis. Jadi sangat penting jika yang belum mempunyai pasangan hidup, jika ingin mencari pasangan hidup, maka carilah yang mempunyai kesamaan dalam 4 hal tersebut. Nah, terakhir untuk yang terakhir tersebut adalah pada saat kita sudah tua, mungkin juga anak-anak kita juga sudah imigrasi keluar, maka yang sangat penting itu adalah untuk mempunyai kalyanamita, yaitu teman-teman yang mempunyai pandangan hidup dan kesamaan dalam moralitas, etika, dan lainnya. Mengapa? Karena kalyanamita tersebut dapat saling support, terutama pada saat tua. Karena kita juga tidak tahu ya, jika memang anak kita dapat berada di sisi kita ya baik, tetapi jika tidak, maka kita juga mempunyai komunitas teman-teman yang memang sejalan dan sepaham. Jadi kira-kira demikian. Yang paling penting adalah bahwa kita harus adaptasi karena ya dunia berubah, situasi berubah, dan itu bukan merupakan apakah itu hal yang baik, apakah itu merupakan hal yang buruk. Kita tidak bisa mengatakan hal itu baik atau buruk. It is just it is. Jadi memang ya situasinya demikian sekarang ini karena dunia semakin berubah. Jadi ya kira-kira demikian untuk mengakhiri pertanyaan terakhir hari ini. Thank you Dr. Wong, thank you Sis Lenie.
Thank you everyone.
Ya, thank you Dr. Wong atas Dhamma sharing-nya yang sangat berharga dan sangat indah ya. Terima kasih Dr. Wong for your precious Dhamma sharing this morning. Thank you Anumodana Dr. Wong. Ya, thank you juga Sis Jenny. Translate-nya sangat bagus sekali ya dan mudah dimengerti. Thank you Sis. Ya.
Thank you Anumodana.
Dr. Wong, ini ada sedikit apresiasi berupa plakat. Nanti kita akan bawakan ke Malaysia ya jika ada kunjungan satu hari nanti. Ini kita berikan secara virtual terlebih dahulu ya, Dr. Wong ya.
Simpan dulu.
Ya, kita dokumentasikan satu ya, Dr. Wong ya.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I still got a batik shirt that Jenny gave me in Jakarta.
Yes. It fits, yes, Dr. Wong.
We take the documentation. One more. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Thank you, Sis Jenny.
Thank you,
Dr. Wong,
Moderator.
for the ending session. Maybe Dr. Wong can say few words, maybe the messages for brother and sister in Indonesia. Yeah. And then closing by the blessing and dedication to all sentient beings. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Now, dear Dhamma family, the Buddha has taught us that Dhamma sharing, listening to the Dhamma is very meritorious. There are people who become awakened just by listening to the Dhamma, because with proper attention, yoniso manasikara, the 5 hindrances subside. And at that point, one can even become a sotapanna. So listening to the Dhamma and the opportunity to share the Dhamma is very meritorious. And with this, we would like to dedicate these wholesome acts for the well-being of the Dhamma family in Indonesia, Malaysia. We would like to dedicate this to the guardian devas. May they rejoice in this sharing of the Dhamma. May they protect us and bless us, that we may be healthy and well, that we may have the conditions to practice Sila Samadhi Panya, that we may all be awakened to the Dhamma, to realize what is the truth. Let me end by chanting the Sabitio. Sabitio Vivajantu Sabaruga Vina Satu Mate Bawa Swan Arayo Suki Dika Yuko Bawa Bawantu Sabba Mangalam Bakantu Sabadevata Sabba Udanu Bhavena Sada Soti Bawantu Bawantu Sabba Mangalam Bakantu Sabadevata Sabba Damanu Bhavena Sada Soti Bawantu Bawantu Sabba Mangalam Bakantu Sabadevata Sabba Sanganu Bhavena Sada Soti Bawantu Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Thank you, Sis Jenny. Terima kasih. Ya, sampai ketemu lagi nanti either di Indonesia atau di Johor Baru ya, Dr. Wong.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you juga Sister Sharon. Thank
Thank
you
you,
Bapak
Sister
Ibu
Jenny.
dan teman-teman semuanya. Sampai ketemu lagi di channel YouTube live-nya Buddhist Fellowship Indonesia di kesempatan berikutnya. Terima kasih semuanya. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nama saya Apan, saya berumur 10 tahun, kelas 4 SD Asoka. Dan di samping saya ada adik saya yang berumur 5 tahun. Saya biasa pergi sekolah sendiri jalan kaki. Mata pelajaran saya paling suka IPA. Wes pulang sekolah saya biasa main, kalau sudah sore Mama suruh bantu jual jinton, saya bantu dia jual jinton. Setiap hari Minggu saya ke Viara, ke Baktian. Pekerjaan mama saya menoreh karet. Biasa dia pergi jam 5, pulangnya jam 11 siang. Kalau mama kerja biasa saya menjaga dedek, ajak dia main gitu. Bapak biasa kerja bangunan. Kalau sekarang dia nggak kerja karena sakit pinggul. Dia sakit sudah 1 tahun. Cita-cita saya menjadi pemain bola. Harapan saya buat sembuhkan Bapak.